Right. So let's see. Any class announcements? I have a student that's doing an independent study this semester, and does anybody know Molly Van Buren? Mm-hmm. So she is, what is she, biology, chemistry? Biology. But she's trying to squeeze in a studio art minor. And so she's doing a class with Laura Ferris and I are both working with her. And so she's been doing some of the readings for this class, and then she's doing a creative project based on it. So I asked her if she could experiment with backstrap weaving, which is what the Mayans used. The Mayan women in that article Beyond Bricolage. So she has done that. And I asked her to talk to us about the experience of it. You know, is it fulfilling? Is it difficult? Is it easy? What do you think? And so there's a little video, and she's given some historical background, and then you can actually see her in the process of doing it. So it's kind of cool. So I'm going to post that after class, and I'd like you to watch it. And then she's actually going to come to the beginning of class next week, and if you want to ask her any questions about technique or anything, you can ask her. Okay? She'll just be here for a few minutes right at the beginning. So just make sure you watch that video. I think that was the only other announcement. I can't really look at them, can I, without looking into the camera, right? Or
I mean, you can move the camera over there.
So when I'm looking this way, I'm looking at you, just so you know. But I think this way you can actually, let's see if more of the students.
It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, the setup's okay? All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. We had some good discussion this week. Oh, I do have another announcement. Mary made a suggestion that in order to give people incentive to start the discussion on the discussion boards early, that I offer extra credit. So if you post before, what do you think, Mary?
Oh, I'd say on the weekends.
So like before Sunday?
Before Monday.
Okay, so just even, okay.
Yeah, just on the weekend.
Okay, so as long as you post before Monday, you'll get extra credit. Okay? I haven't really sat down to figure out how much extra credit, but you'll get extra credit. Okay? This will help out our sports people who have to post on the weekend because it's difficult for them to post early in the week. But also this will give you a chance to actually get into a discussion, right? So I've noticed several of you have gone back on several times and joined the discussion again. That's what I'm looking for, right? So you actually get into a discussion rather than just sort of posting an opinion and walking away, okay? So if you post on the weekend, then if you want, you can go back, or ideally, the idea is that you would go back and you post again on Monday, maybe even check it again on Tuesday, yeah? Just because it's kind of fun, it's kind of addictive. Once you get into a conversation, like, oh, I wonder what she said, and I'll go back on and check, yeah? So it's supposed to be a very active kind of thing, right? So but overall, I'm pleased with the discussions. Just want to see more people post and most, not everyone, post more often. Some people are posting just the right amount. Any questions about the discussion board or what's expected there?
I have a question about what you posted just before class.
Mm-hmm.
It says it's due tomorrow. What exactly are we supposed to be doing with it for tomorrow?
What is due tomorrow? Oh,
PowerPoint you posted.
Oh, sorry, that was my fault. That
Okay.
PowerPoint is tonight's PowerPoint.
Okay.
Yeah, I just forgot to turn the due date off on it. Yeah. So we will have a PowerPoint tonight, so I won't put it on yet, but let's start the discussion, and then I'll put the screen share on, and I'll share.
I have a question too. Do we have to like close the thing?
Close
Like
the thing.
it says open, and then it says like due. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, if you don't mark it off, it says that you turned it in late.
Yeah.
True, even though they're just comments, so it's not like you're actually.
Yeah, but you have to mark it off, or else it just keeps telling you turned it in late.
But
like-
I do need to know that they were you posted late. You won't get full credit for posting late.
But we posted on time, but because we didn't click the button that said, I'm done.
Oh,
It says-
Yeah.
It says you were late.
Okay.
Yeah, I just realized
Okay,
that.
you know what? Don't worry about that then. Do you get notified? What do you have to keep doing? You just have to click something?
You just say that you're done with that assignment, so it knows to take it off from your
Like
phone.
every single
Oh.
one says it though. Like every
That's
single
true.
post.
Every single post. It shows up
The
on the
posts that you
sidebar
say are
saying
assignments,
it's
Yeah.
overdue.
not
So-
just the announcement.
Yeah, you know what I had noticed too, and again, Google Classroom is pretty new. We didn't have it last year when I was experimenting with this course. And I just realized there's an add question. So I'll add question rather than assignment, and I don't think we have to deal with any of that. I just remembered there was an add question button.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Any other questions about that? Yeah. Any other questions, Morgan or Lauren, about the discussion board or anything?
No.
Okay. All right, well, let's get into the discussion then. Let's see. Shall we start with the reading creation of femininity? That's not the exact word, not exact title. What is this?
It is creation of femininity.
A creation of femininity. Okay. So let's start with that. Okay. Just to give you a little historical background, the authors of this were some of the very first feminist art historians. Okay, Parker and Pollock. So they're some of the very, very first, they're sort of the Judy Chicago and Miriam Shapiro, who we'll be talking about a little bit later on, of feminist art history. Okay, so they're beginning to revive the work of women artists. So this was, I can't remember the exact date, I'll look it up. This was a pretty revolutionary article. Okay, could you kind of sense that a little bit? Her language isn't altogether revolutionary, not like maybe Miriam Shapiro's and Famaj. But yeah, what she is asserting here is very revolutionary. We can give a date on that. Okay, so it was originally published in '84. So actually, it's about a decade later than when Shapiro and Chicago are working with feminist art, but it makes sense that it kind of catch on a little bit later. Although we do have some feminist art history beginning in the 70s. But these are my point is that these are very early feminist art historians, okay? And as I said, at the time they were writing, this was pretty revolutionary. So just kind of bear that in mind. Okay, so I'm just going to look at our discussion board to see what kind of comments we had.
I actually have something that I didn't post, but I wish I had because I'm so busy like replying to things other people said. I actually used to work in a factory that used to be the Whitman Sampler Factory. And the walls were really cool because they had scraps of samplers, old box tops, all just like pasted all over the walls, like as inspiration boards almost. It was an interesting place to work. I was running a sewing room for an event rental company.
So what kind of company did you say it was?
It used to be the factory that made the Whitman Sampler box tops.
Oh, okay. Okay. So are we familiar with the Whitman Sampler top box? Or do you know what she's talking about?
Those tops?
Huh?
Like things used to cut out? And...
No, the tops, they come in with the Whitman samplers.
Whitman Sampler, it's like a sort of chocolates box, like you get for Valentine's Day, but it has like a cross-stitch design on the box lid for all of them.
So, I know I've asked you guys a million times, how do I screen share again? It's over here, right? I'm going to go ahead and put the screen share on.
It's the green box.
That one? Okay. I don't press cancel, right? Don't press cancel?
You have to click on one of the options.
Oh, that's right.
You want to do like the entire.
Okay, I think I want to do
You can
that
do, yeah, that one.
Yeah. So do I need to be on this screen for them to see it, or this screen?
I can see it.
You can, okay, you can see it.
Yeah.
Are you sure the keyboard's on? Like, hey,
Yeah.
I can see if the green light.
So what can you see on yours? Make sure, well, it's the same screen, isn't it? Let me see.
So that screen is what they see.
This screen on top. Or, I mean, this one or that one?
They see that.
Okay, that's what I thought.
It looked like the Google chat. Are we recruiting?
I can't.
You're trying to type into
Oh,
the
yeah,
Hangout.
I'm sorry. So I need to do a new screen?
No, go to the big one behind that one.
Okay, all right. All right.
So that's what they see.
Okay. Let's see. So images. Okay. Am I typing that incorrectly, Mary? Because I cannot see.
I am.
You can just Google it and then click on the images tab after
Okay.
you pull it up.
All right. So Whitman, W-H-I-T-M-A-N, sampler.
That's good.
Okay. So this is what she's talking about. Have you seen these before?
I haven't, but I know.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought I liked those.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a perfect example of what Parker's. Everyone's like, oh. So, just out of curiosity, why did everyone respond in that kind of a way? Like, it was kind of a positive reaction.
Because it's chocolate.
So it's because it's chocolate, there's no other level
Well, I
of
just recognize it.
familiarity. Yes, you recognize it. So,
Not that I've had it, but
okay. So even if you haven't had it, it's something we kind of recognize. And what are the kind of connotations they're trying to create here with this sampler?
it reminds me of my grandma's house.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
Family
good advertising,
recipes.
right? So what would you associate with grandma's house?
Family recipes.
Okay, good. So it's homemade, it's
Yeah.
real, it's traditional.
It's something you trust.
Yes. Oh, and something you can trust. Okay. So this is the kind of thing that Parker's talking about at the beginning here, where she says, I think she uses like, isn't it Campbell soup, did a similar type thing. Yeah. So this is what she's talking about. Okay. So if I want to see them in between, but not go back and forth, I'm gonna have to go back and forth, right? There's no way of getting them
You
to.
can see bits of them at the bottom of the screen, like what they're.
Yeah. Okay. Raise that up a bit.
So that's what they see.
Oh, this is what this. Okay. So this. Okay. But then I have to change it on here, right? Okay. So so obviously advertisers are marketing the kind of connotations of the sampler, again, homemade, authentic, traditional, homey, cozy, feminine, right? My grandmother actually used to make homemade chocolates, and she would mail them to us every Christmas. That was like the highlight of my Christmas,
That sounds delicious.
was getting my grandmother's homemade. Okay, so let's talk about this article then. So we kind of understand what they're talking about in sort of the creation of identity, of femininity. Let's start with what Caroline started talking about on her post, where she actually differentiates between the different kinds of femininity. This might be a good place to start. Okay, so this is on page 4. Okay, so I know you already read this, but let's just review. So will someone begin reading the second full paragraph in the left-hand column? It is, however. I'll stop you.
It is, however, important to distinguish between the construction of femininity, lived femininity, the feminine ideal, and the feminine stereotype. The construction of femininity refers to the psychoanalytic, analytic, and social account of sexual differentiation. And femininity is a lived identity for women, either embraced or resisted. The feminine ideal is an historically changing concept of what women should be, while the feminine stereotype is a collection of attributes which is imputed to women and against which their every concern is measured.
Okay, you can stop there. Okay, so do we kind of understand those differences? Yeah? You can read through that again just to make sure that it's sunk in. So what do you think about this? And any ideas? Can you relate to any of these concepts? And why is it important to differentiate? So for instance, do you think there is a difference between your lived femininity and some of the other types of femininity?
Yeah. Because lived femininity is just kind of how you identify,
Okay.
whereas all the other, like, the feminine ideal, like, hey, that's what I'm supposed to be, but that's not my identity, but I might take some of those attributes and that forms my identity.
Okay, good. So you may adopt different types of the stereotype or the ideal depending upon your lived femininity. Okay. So again, why is it important to distinguish?
Because they are absolutely different. If we didn't distinguish them, then we would assume that one was the ultimate one and everyone should adhere to this one way, and it's not that one way.
Yeah, and the one way being the ideal or the stereotype, right? So the very fact that she's saying there's a difference between this perception of femininity and the way we live femininity is important, right? So any other thoughts about that? Do you feel like, are there certain things you do in your life that you tend to do because you think that's what girls do?
Like shave?
That's a perfect example.
No, I like to do that because it's clean. It feels good.
Well, you've heard my Gillette.
Tomorrow.
Oh, women have there's a pink tax. Is that what you're talking about with Gillette?
No. So women didn't shave up until the 20th century when male businessmen got together and said, how can we make more money? Then they
Well,
got
and women started wearing like strapless
true, because the
dresses, and we felt unfeminine. They said that we were unfeminine if we had armpit hair.
I don't know if we felt unfeminine or they told us we were unfeminine.
We were told that we were
gross if I
unfeminine
don't
for
shave
having
my
hair.
Do you think that's
Actually,
natural, or is that like a social?
I
Like a
think
social
now
condition
that I
for that.
do it,
Social.
like.
Do you think you would ever thought to have done it if it wasn't that Mary did it and Scotia did it and society? I don't know if you remember this, but Julia Roberts in the 90s, she did it at a premiere. Do you remember this? Do you know about this?
Can we stop sharing?
Are you all right?
Can we stop sharing the screen because, like, during the discussion, it's still on the chocolate.
Sure. Okay. Okay. We'll need it again later, but I'll go ahead and do it later on. Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a big deal in the 90s, you probably don't remember this, but Julia Roberts, I think it was that Notting Hill film. Anyway, she was like at a London premiere and she raised her arm up and lo and behold, there was a whole lot of hair there and it was all over the press. It did not go away for days and days talking about her underarm hair.
Well, I know, like in the past, was it this year or last year, there was a Twitter trend of girls dyeing their hair sort of armpit hair pastel colors.
Lady Gaga did that as well.
It's still going on.
Yeah. Miley Cyrus.
I have a friend who braids her.
Is it a form of rebellion?
Well, now it is.
That's what I was going to talk about, is the stuff that I think, for me personally, yes, I adhere to a lot of the ideals, but also, like, to not do the ideals because you know that they are.
Okay. It's still determining our behavior, right? Because if it wasn't for men saying you need to shave it, then we wouldn't be saying, okay, well, I'm going to rebel and I'm going to braid it or dye it instead, right? We're still being kind of...
We've never tried or started it. Even if you do like it now, like, I don't know, you know what I mean? It's, you know.
It's something we're thinking about. How much of our lives would be, or how much of our lived femininity comes naturally, and how much is socially conditioned. It's just worth thinking about.
That's true. And at this point, I think it's not just like businessmen making it. I mean, it's obviously women would judge other women if we didn't shave our armpits.
Right.
Like,
right.
even if you're like when you talk about it, you're like, oh, if they don't want to shave their armpits, that's okay. That's their body. Let them do it if they want. When you see someone raise their arm and it's like,
But deep down, you're like,
well, no, I mean, maybe not like
Some
that.
people are,
You're
though.
shocked at it.
yeah.
At first, like, oh my goodness. So like, oh well, I mean, I guess they can do it if they want. But wow, I didn't expect that one. Like, it's just
To be
like,
fair, a lot of people have that same reaction when men raise their arms because men's armpit hair is terrifying.
It is, but why didn't businessmen try to get them to do it?
Because actually, the whole raising started in the Western world thing is actually connected to World War I,
Okay.
not to the style of dress changing. The style of dress changed because women started shaving their armpits, not the other way around.
Yeah, that I
Men
didn't
went
know
off-
about that, but I did know it was. Go ahead.
Men
Go
went
ahead.
off to World War I, and,
Yeah.
and so business people were like, well, now we don't make money off of these. Let's tell the women to shave.
Right. Right.
So it had nothing to do with wanting to look prettier. It was 100% about making money.
Yes.
And then the styles changed to reflect it.
So that's right. So that's why they had to tap into the female audience, was because the men were
well, I
away
feel
at
like the
war.
lack of
Okay.
sleeves also was a notion of freeing yourself out of the whole
Yeah, but that
Victorian
still came
ideal.
after women started shaving their armpits.
I feel like, okay.
It definitely
I think
did.
that's debatable.
No, trust me, on this one it definitely did.
No, I trust you. I wasn't sure. I just kind of assumed that was the natural sequence. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they had tapped into the women, but that's still around though, right? I mean, like the fact that this idea that we'll buy into any kind of
What's your
concept.
background, Roscoe?
No, it's a whistler.
All right, sorry.
Like for instance, if you think about how much we pay for pantyhose, right? They overcharge us because, like you have short hair, right? So I can't imagine that your hair is much different to cut than a man's, but yet you're going to pay double, right?
Yeah, I have to go to barbershops now.
You do?
Yeah,
Good
it's
for
like
you.
$70 and like you
Yes.
cut like 3 hairs off. Like I'm not paying that. That's stupid.
Again, it's this idea that we'll buy into it. We're vulnerable,
Yeah.
right? Or gullible, I guess is the word. Okay, so let's look on page 5 then. So it's the next column. I want to read another paragraph. It's the second full paragraph starting the art-craft hierarchy. Can someone read that for me?
I'll read it. Oh,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I already did read one. You go.
Go ahead,
I
Jane.
was someone else was.
The art-craft hierarchy suggests that art
You're gonna have to be louder.
The art-craft hierarchy suggests that art made with thread and art made with paint are
Intrinsically.
intrinsically unequal, that the former is artistically less significant, but the real differences between the two are in terms of where they are made and who makes them. Embroidery.
Okay, you can stop there.
Okay.
What do you think about that? You agree or disagree with that statement?
I can agree to some. I don't think very highly of like scrapbooking or puffy painting. And that is a craft. But if I were to go and see a quilting museum, which I have, I think it's amazing.
Okay.
So I think it just depends.
Okay. And this,
I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask a very broad, almost irrelevant question. Where is the line, I know we've talked a lot about this in the comments, but I don't remember if we brought it into class or not. Where is the line between arts and crafts and actual, like, fine art? Which I think is, like, part of what you just asked, but, because I'm very confused.
No, I mean, it's what Mary's hinting at here.
I think it depends on how wowed the audience is. If you can take puffy paint,
with puffy paint.
if you can take puffy paint and make it into something amazing, then I'm gonna love it. Like I saw this one artist. She used silicone. That doesn't sound awesome, but she was able to mix it with some paints, and it was amazing. It looked sturdy. They gave her sculptures, but when she picked it up, they like flopped around. It was so cool. I think it depends on how you wow your audience to whether it's going to be art.
Does all
or
art have to wow the audience?
I prefer to be wowed.
Well, this is the aesthetic experience. Was that I can't remember. We studied that in contemporary. But like the physical reaction to something that's not beneficial to you. So yeah. So is it like could potentially thread or twine be? Well, this is also sort of practical. So maybe I can underplay that where like a painting. Unless it's a map. Nothing about that doesn't benefit from, seeing flowers that I could go to a field or see, you know what I mean?
Painting is held in higher regard because it's traditionally been associated with the wealthier people who could afford to just create something out of materials and then just hang on the wall and not have a function. Because it's associated with rich people originally. I'm going to go with that one.
Okay. Do you agree or disagree?
I mean, it was organized and professionalized into like academies and styles, and different cities had different styles and schools in themselves. So, I mean, I feel like that might play into why we have the whole hierarchy within the arts.
Well, and I think it ties back into this last part of the statement, but the real difference between the two are in terms of where they are made and who makes them.
True.
You could add to that who buys them, right?
True.
Okay. So you're kind of tapping, and Mary and Mackenzie are kind of tapping into this idea too that somehow the function of arts and crafts diminishes its quality. Traditionally, that's the way it's been seen, right? The fact that it's functional makes it a little less aesthetically pleasing. Do you agree with that? Can something be functional and aesthetically pleasing? And I know we're all say yes. Well, maybe you won't. Maybe you won't. I didn't mean to say that, but back up whatever you're going to say with a why or why not.
I have a question in regards to this. Something else that's artistic but also functional is furniture, and I know there's like a large section of design that's oriented around like furniture design and making things look nice, and it's like has elements of architecture in it and things. Has furniture been considered art for a while, or is that a new thing?
Well, it's under decorative arts, isn't it? Which is still separate from the fine arts.
Generally, if it's considered art, it's not meant to be sat on or used in that way.
Even if it's a chair that was meant to be in the museum, though, it's still a chair. It has the idea of functionality there.
I don't know if chairs are ever meant to be in museums. I think they're designed, and then somebody says that's a pretty amazing design, or that reflects something about its day and age. There's some historical, social significance, and then decides to put it in. But nevertheless,
like in Versailles when they were making the chairs, so they're like, this is art, and we're going to sit on it. I guess I'm not, but it's still art to us. So I guess what I'm asking is, at what point do decorative arts become art?
Well, this is a good point. Maybe we're focusing too much on the arts and crafts here, and not on the decorative arts in general. But you can understand why they're focusing on the arts and crafts, because it's female, right? Women generally didn't make chairs.
Yeah, that has more
But
of
it's a good point.
classism for when it's not considered art, because generally carpenters are lower class.
Yes, it's true. It is, and this is a good point.
The class side of things and the gender.
So does this somehow, is this an argument against what she's saying? I mean, you could say the same thing about men and carpentry, right?
No, I think it's an argument that connects with what she's saying.
Okay.
I think it's got, they intersect. It's intersectionality just applied to art.
Well, it's aware and who. It's just not aware and who of gender. It's aware and who of.
Yeah, because like even in high class society, at an older point in time, like women wouldn't be considered first class citizens. They would just be more wealthy, more protected. But their husband's still the one in charge.
Right.
So it sort of puts them on the same level as that carpenter, who is a man, but he's not the same class.
Okay.
I think it kind of relates to the other article. I think it's between the binary article that talks about like race and your sexual orientation and all that, and just basically goes back to saying that first you look at the artist before you look at the art. And that's where like the class comes in. But as far as functionality, I think that it's really easy to overlook that as art, because its first duty is what it functions as. Like the quilting started because they were cold and they were poverty stricken, and so they had to find these scraps in order to make blankets and stay warm. And so people saw it as that first, whereas with those paintings, the only purpose that it serves is to be looked at.
Okay. Good point. Anybody want to comment on that, or any of the other comments? We lost Caroline. Is she okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
her family may have just called.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that looking at the artist first, like if that person is like deemed intellectual, then you're gonna think everything they do has like an intellectual purpose necessarily.
That's true.
But
That's very true.
so like is their meaning in what they do, like painting more because like necessarily like a man painted it, or he was supposed to be a scribe, or like the like writtenly educated as opposed to women, I don't know.
And like if you wanted to paint, you go to an academy, and then getting that training from the master that's already been accepted by society not only gives you a foot in the door into the profession, but also legitimizes your work as something that's certified, so to speak, by that school and by that academy. So I mean, yes.
Okay.
I see that.
Yeah, that's also true. Like, if you look at a piece and you look at first that it's an artist, and you know that it's a well-known artist and they're a good artist, then I feel like sometimes you then think of that art piece more highly than you would if you were looking up to it and haven't looked at the artist.
I have definitely had this. Like, I was looking at a piece and be like, oh, that's really cool. Another virgin and child, and then I look at the person it's fine. I'm like, oh, I have to look at this more now.
Okay.
I've definitely agree with that one as well. I'm sorry, I'm just yesing everything.
So you're saying there's too much emphasis on the artist and not enough on the object?
I do feel so.
I think so.
Or at least a bias.
Yes. And I think we get caught up in the story behind a piece, which is great. We need that story, we need that context. But I think we also, we need to have both viewpoints and the abilities to look at it without thinking about the artist, and just look at it by itself.
Well, if anything, Sanders is saying we need to look more at the artist, right? And the subjectivity of the artist and the act of art making, right?
Yes.
And the artist's background will have a direct effect on what they produce.
I mean, that's
not
true.
necessarily in terms of materials, but in terms of what kind of message it's giving off.
Right, I'm not saying we don't need to look at the artist. I'm just saying we need to have both abilities to look at it in both ways and not discount either of them, because I think they're both important.
So let's talk about then. I'm going to kind of bring in the quilting video that that we watched. So their intention wasn't to be artists, right? I mean, she says out now, I didn't even know what art was or what the art world was. Like, she didn't even really understand what she was entering into at first. So does the fact that is it still important in terms of her subjectivity as an individual, and certainly given the place and time that she's working and the conditions?
I think art that was made without the purpose of being art, or art that was made by an individual who wasn't aware of what art was, I think this sounds really odd. Maybe it has an intrinsically more artistic value because they weren't told what is art. Okay. If they made something that was just by itself great and magnificent, and then others considered it art, it's almost higher in a sense. I don't know. That seems really abstract.
No, not at all. I mean, there's a
because they're not like mimicking ideas they've seen.
Yeah,
I think that's
in the 20th century. There are artists who are very keenly interested in children's art because they're not affected. It's the same kind of thing. They're kind of grow up in this, or they're in this sort of vacuum, right? They're not affected by trends and what's acceptable, and so there's this purity that they see in their art.
Well, and that's what was talked about in the Quilts, the Great American Art, like the final statement said, left in peace, women succeeded on their own in building a design tradition so strong its influence has extended almost 400 years. Like that they were ignorant to the fact that they made such revolutionary pieces.
Right.
It should be considered this great art.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I brought this up, it was kind of late, but I brought this up on the discussion board. I mean, oftentimes when we talk about art, I know I have been in discussions with several of you, class discussions, and it'll inevitably go back to what is art. Well, it's if the artist says it's art, it's art. That's a very kind of Duchamp idea, right? If you're familiar with Duchamp, he's the one who did the urinal, right? Turned it upside down, signed it, and said it's art. So the fact that can we turn the argument around and say, well, these women aren't saying it's art, so is it art?
Well, the Duchamp thing was more of a commentary on like the market,
and
yes. Like it was more of like culturally, like how art is maybe like from the aesthetic to cultural meaning. I think because maybe a woman's just, whereas like some of these quilting women were just trying to make like welcoming homes for their families, and necessarily doing things that were like, I don't know, not nourishing, but I don't know, like culturally welcoming, and as opposed to Duchamp, which was like strictly a commentary on it doesn't have to be pretty, but this is what the art world likes.
Okay.
Which is like the fallacy of the art world, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like once they were told what art was, so many of them embraced being artists and being thought of that way, and that, yes, this is who they were, that it goes back to the discussion of who are you creating art for? Are you creating art for somebody else, or are you creating it for yourself because you need to do this? And so many of them said that like they would sit down and they're saying, like, that's when it felt like right and everything was just normal and good for them when they were sitting there sewing and singing songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it starts that discussion of who are you making art for, and they didn't have a context of what art was, so they couldn't see themselves as artists until somebody explained it. Did we just freeze?
What happened?
Everything froze.
They froze?
They froze. They haven't moved. And then you got up and I'm like, okay, we're done.
It was such a good statement. I hope they heard it.
Oh, and we're live. We're being recorded.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just over here like I'm lighting a candle right now. So how is this being recorded? Okay, it is live. It's us.
We're live.
It's funny. Well, while we're at it, here's a candle that I lit. Okay, so do we leave this? Because they just got dropped.
I think they're probably going to invite us back, I hope.
I don't know.
I don't know. I have to get up to go over to the computer again. It's mounted to a wall.
Really? Where are you right now?
We have a whole bunch of smart classrooms on campus, And because the camera on my laptop doesn't work, I signed out a smart classroom, and they gave me a key. So just every Wednesday I show up, and this is my room.
Yeah, but like what college?
Oh, McDaniel. I'm in northern Maryland, like just south of Pennsylvania. If you drive 10 minutes, you're in Pennsylvania.
Oh, cool.
Am I gonna get another invitation?
Yeah, here. Let's end this and then we'll go back to them.
Yeah. I wonder if we can invite them back in.
Oh, so stop broadcast.
There now, you have to add them.
I don't know why it doesn't come up automatically. Isn't that strange? I think she's LJP. There we go. Okay. Okay, there?
I am.
Hi. Lauren with us when we... Oh, there she is. Okay, great. Okay, we're back. Back in business. So, quilting. We were talking about the quilt makers, and I asked the idea about intention, was that was important. And you were making a point, I think, Lauren. Do you remember what that was? I lost my thought.
I was saying that it comes back to the idea of who are you creating art for? Is it for yourself? Is it for another audience? And these women, they even said they have no context of what art or what an artist is. And until somebody came along and told them this is art and you're an artist, they didn't even have any idea they could classify themselves that way. And once they knew that that was a possibility, they embraced it.
They did embrace it. They did embrace it. And I think that's important, right? But what do you guys think? Because I still can't help the original idea of making these. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here for a moment, so just bear with me. I mean, it stemmed out of necessity. She said herself, it stemmed out of necessity. So that doesn't sound like self-fulfillment.
I mean, a lot of
did it turn into it at some stage?
Yeah, a lot of original quilts weren't nearly as artistically complicated
Mhm.
as quilts now. Like my
Mhm.
aunt owns a quilting business, and I know that she considers
okay.
her quilts to be art.
Okay.
And I actually have one in my room right now, and I consider it art.
Okay. So
It just also happens to keep me warm at night.
okay. Well, then we go back to the whole function thing, right? That's. But yes. So we think that somewhere along the line, it becomes at some stage it becomes art because what? It begins to be more about design and concept as opposed to necessity and function.
Like the one woman was saying, I forget where in the video it was, but she was saying that she made her first quilt because she needed one. But like by this point in time that he shows up and says they're art, they all have so many quilts they don't even know they own some of these. They just kept making them because it was something that fulfilled them.
That's true. That's a good point. But they also made money right? I mean, they did sell them for, I mean, not as much as they're worth now, but, you know, initially they did make them for a living. It kind of reminds me back to that argument I was talking about, this former student's grandmother. Remember that picture of her quilting and the empty beer bottles all scattered around, and how for her mother it was actually hell, her grandmother. I wonder if he romanticizes it a little bit. I don't know. And yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we romanticize almost everything because it's a better story, and we all live for the narrative.
That's true, especially the past.
And I mean,
everybody wants to live in the past decade.
Yeah.
Mine is the 1920s.
I like now, honestly. I like Wi-Fi. I like toilets.
I'll give
Well, that's true. I mean, I don't want to
smartphones
know
if
if
I can have.
Like 100 years from now, when I have all my rights.
So was anybody else a little cynical about them embracing it? I mean, part of me was like, I love this story. It's like this is great, you know, they're now they know what they've been doing all along is art, they feel fulfilled.
But
and
not all of
they
them
have recognition.
fulfilled it. Like, not all of them liked it. There was
Okay.
one woman who was like, she was like, I don't care. Like,
Okay.
I made them because no one would give me a quilt.
Okay.
And she like
exactly.
refused to go to the museums, and she's like, I don't want to go. She made up excuses for being sick.
Okay.
And they're like, well, what if we paid? What if it came closer? And she was like, no.
It's funny because if she was a part of the art world, we tend to think that she was playing into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like she's playing the sort of anti-art thing, but she really didn't care, right? Because she wasn't aware of that, but by denying that her art would actually go up, right? She's not playing the game.
It's so authentic.
Well, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? The scenario that's set up there.
For the tour guide to stay in the museum.
But yeah, and I couldn't help but wonder if the financial reward was as satisfying as being told you're an artist and you're creating art. Again, I'm being a little cynical here, a little devil's advocate, but just to.
Well, I think at some point these women, part of it, like, it's their craftsmanship, you know what I mean? It's the time invested was so significantly higher than it, you know, people weren't making large quilts, and they make so many. I think that knowledge base, like, definitely holds some value of being told, like,
what you're doing is
what you're doing, what you're investing time in isn't, you know, is more than just looking cool and like keep our beds warm, but like we gotta be like we identify like what you put into this.
I wonder if it'd be a similar thing if we went to the Cuna women in Panama and said, you know, your pieces are in collections and they're actually worth a lot of money. I wonder if they would feel that same sense of sort of satisfaction, or the cultural difference is so great. Just to make a connection that we can see a connection here, right, between Gee's Bend and Gee's Bend, by the way, was a really big deal. I mean, you went to modern art museums, there were books everywhere. I mean, it was all the rage.
Is it still that popular, or has it died down? I'm guessing it's died down.
Well, maybe Gee's Bend, but we are because of that exhibition. We see quilts now in art galleries, which is essentially what Sanders is calling for here, right? Mm-hmm. That was in 2005, by the way. So a lot has taken place in 10 years that he wrote that. But again, just to kind of draw a parallel with the Cuna women and this idea, who puts value on it, who says it's art, how does that affect the artist, the context in which it's made. Okay, I want to just show you. I'm going to screen share with you for a moment again. Show you the PowerPoint I had. All right, posted onto Google Classroom. Okay, so this is what she sees, but this is where I do it, right? Okay. Okay, can you see my PowerPoint? It's okay. Okay. So this one. That's spare time. Okay, we'll just look at it in here. Downloaded it. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Okay, can you see my PowerPoint?
Yep.
Can you see the opened PowerPoint? Where I've downloaded it and opened it?
Oh, no, I'm still looking at it on the docs view.
Oh, yeah, same.
So how do I get that? Oh, because it has to be here. Okay, we'll just look at it here then. So can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I just wanted to, if you look at the second image. Okay. We're looking at two different pieces. Which one do you think, I'll tell you, one is the G's bend quilt. Which one do you think is the G's bend quilt?
One to the right.
The one on the right.
One on the right.
Yeah. Can we see that?
Yeah.
So what similarities does it share with this piece on the left?
Is it the one on the left a quilt? I can't tell.
No, it's actually not a quilt.
Is it a painting?
It's a painting.
It's a painting.
Yeah, excuse me, the one on the left looks, it doesn't look used or worn. It looks very crisp and clear. If it makes sense.
Right, right. And you can see there's a actual frame here too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I thought that was like it laying on a table.
No, that's a frame. But what kind of like formal similarities do we see?
Well, I mean, they're both strong geometrics.
Okay, geometric.
Sort of patterned for both of them.
Oh, colorful.
Lauren, yeah?
They're both using rectilinear shapes.
Okay, rectilinear shapes. Good, good. And as we said, the color as well, so the shape and the color. So the one on the left is actually by Paul Klee. Does anybody know of anything about Paul Klee? K-L-E-E?
I've heard of it.
Have you heard of him?
I've heard of it, but I can't remember anything right now.
He was an early 20th century painter. So this is from I don't have a date on exact date on this one, but he's early 20th century. And somewhere along the line, someone said, this is art. And this went down in the canon, so Paul Klee is in our canon. And do you know what I mean by canon? Can somebody define canon?
It's like the accepted, it's like the things that make it into the accepted form of a particular like category, sort of.
Okay, so it's accepted as fine art.
Yeah.
Right? So this entered the canon. Okay? So anybody know why I might put these side by side other than to point out the stylistic similarities?
Because if we say that the one on the left is art, then what's separating the one on the right from being art?
Okay, except that it's a painting, right?
Yeah.
By a male, quilt by a woman.
Were they made around a similar time period?
I'm sorry, say that again, Lauren?
Were they made around a similar time period?
No, this G-spend quilt would have been, I don't have a date on that, but, you know, relatively recent.
Okay.
That she's
They had some that were old as the 1930s and before, so.
Yeah, the painting is, we just looked it up, it's from 1929. Okay, so part of it is we can see they both have artistic qualities. We both would define these as art. Why one went into the canon and one took so long to get into the canon, would we say, is in large part based on who made it and where, right? So Paul Klee was making for art for the art market, for the patrons. G-spend artist, I'm sorry, I don't have a name, is making it for their own benefit and, you know, for utilitarian purposes. I think it's also interesting here, though, too, and another reason I put this side by side is because basically what we're seeing here, and I just want to see if this kind of bothered anybody on any level as they were watching this. So basically they're saying the one on the left, that's part of the canon, that's good art. Okay, and someone comes along and says, oh, look, these, I'm sounding really cynical, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to make you think critically here. I'm trying to challenge you. So someone comes along on the right and says, oh, geez, Ben, those look very much like Klee's work or other artists' work. You could put a number of artists up there. It has those modern qualities, the qualities that we valued in early modern painting. It should be art. Does that bother you on any level? Is it still abiding by a male definition of art?
Why does it have to be male and female? Like, why does a binary have to be there? Art is art, no matter who made it.
Okay, we'll get to that in a moment. Because
like, why?
What if you found out a man made this quilt?
What'd you say, Lauren?
What if you found out a man made this quilt? They do so sometimes.
Yeah. Well,
Not very often.
The thing that that bugs me is that it wouldn't be considered art if we didn't have a male precedent, which is kind of what you just said.
Exactly. Did you follow that? That's exactly what I'm trying
Well,
to
you
say
can't
here.
say that any art is art because there is a male precedent in all art. I think as long as there's one person to stand there and call it art, then it's art, whether that's the artist or just the viewer.
Yeah, I guess I feel like it goes a little against what Sanders is saying here in terms of like this. He's really calling for this sort of subjective, aesthetic kind of new theory of looking at craft. And I think comparing it to fine art in terms of the formal similarities isn't really what he's asking for here, because he's talking about the subjectivity of the maker, the conditions in which it was made, and so on. I feel like that's overlooked here. So in other words, when we see it hung in a gallery, and I have some here, it loses all context, correct? Guys, do me a favor, unless you're looking at the PowerPoint, put your computers down, okay? So it loses all context, right? Does something seem strange to you about seeing these quilts in this kind of atmosphere?
No. Very first museum I went to was a quilt museum.
Okay. And what was that like, just out of curiosity?
I was actually extremely bored and tired because it was a tour from school. I was in 5th grade.
Well, that might have something to do with it.
That had a lot to do with it, but I went back again when I was actually awake, and I liked it. So, that had a lot to do with it.
So we'll get back to this art. Why do we have to have categories, kind of thing? Because I think that is important. But if you went to, so are we saying then? Do we agree on the whole, kind of, or anybody want to kind of disagree that art or quilts do have fine art qualities and deserve to be hung on the wall?
I don't know. They look like the formalism period when everybody was just like shapes and shapes everywhere. But like, why is it that like you could go to a museum and see literally just like stacks of wooden blocks, but then like geometric wooden blocks and be like, oh, I guess they're trying to say something about whatever art is. And then like these paintings or these quilts now, like when they're hung like that, they now look very similar to like those fine art pieces.
They do. They look like paintings, right?
Mm-hmm. Especially from that period. Yeah.
Are we losing context and everything here?
I know. I personally at home have a quilt hanging at home.
Mm-hmm.
You have
Like my brother's, like, I think his 5th grade class had a competition to see who made the best square.
Mm-hmm.
And then like they had to sew it themselves and everything.
The guys too?
Yeah, like it was an entire class. It was like this giant quilt.
Okay.
And then like I think either the teacher like quilted it. And so like my brother won, so we got to keep the quilt, and like no one's ever used it, but like every place, like we've moved a lot, so every place my mom's like always showcased it. So it's not like hanging on the wall because we didn't have enough wall space, but like draped over our stairway railing.
Okay.
But it's like you see it right when you walk in, and it's right below this like giant painting that my grandpa painted, and it looks, you can't tell that a bunch of 5th graders made it.
Uh-huh.
It looks similar to like the blocks up there, because that's kind of what it looks like, but some of them have designs, but like I always like picture it as art.
Okay.
Because like it's just the same as like a painting.
Okay. Right.
Sweetbriar has a quilt that's of Sweetbriar history that all the alums made, and it wasn't created to be functional. It was created. And I know people that have quilts that bought quilts never to use them.
And then it's not a far jump from tapestries, and people have been hanging tapestries on the wall for a long time. I mean, unicorn tapestries have to be up there.
Okay.
They had a lot of time and effort and money put into it.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Okay. That's a good point.
I guess for me, because I'm just gonna straight up say I don't really understand like modern art.
Okay. And you're probably not the only one, so I'm glad you said it.
Like, it's not that I don't appreciate the fact that it's someone's artwork.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Uh-huh.
So to me, quilts are almost more artistic, and like I really don't want to sound like ignorant saying that, but like to me, I see that someone has taken the time to hand sew each and every little piece, and that they matched up the colors and the shapes and all of that. Where to me, like, I look at a Pollock and I'm just like, oh, it's just splatters.
Okay. Or you might look at the clay and think those are just painted on colors.
Yeah. So like, and like I said, I don't know if it's just because I don't understand it, like understand modern art. But to me, I almost see just more of what goes into like quilts.
Craftsmanship, right?
Yeah. Like I see the more. I don't want to say more time, but like yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Like, cause to me, like when I look at a Pollock, I'm just kind of like, oh, like he picked his colors, he did that. But
He didn't even really pick them; they're just plain
yeah.
colors,
So like to me, when I look at that, I'm just like, oh, he just threw.
See, I kind of like that because your perspective, and you say up
kind of
front
like the above picture, they just chose random colors, whereas quilts, they actually did stuff.
Yeah, because you have
well,
to
be careful because you would have been delivered to.
Well, yeah, but like that's kind of what she's saying.
Yeah.
I feel like.
I understand that. Like with art, everything is there for a reason. Everything, like an artist wouldn't include something if it wasn't there just to like be there, just to take up space. So like I understand that it's there for a reason. I just don't really get it.
Okay.
Like, more with modern art, like I'm just gonna say it, like. And so like with me, like I just see how each piece was hand sewn and each stitch, because it just takes so much time.
Right.
But do you think because they didn't constitute it originally as art that maybe there wasn't that intention, whereas like with the paintings and stuff, even though it might look like there's colors just thrown on it, there was that artistic integrity that they chose to position everything in a certain way, whereas quilting, to make it functional, they might have just like placed random things in random places and then it miraculously like turned out to look purposeful.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, especially like 19th century quilts. And we talk about this idea of bricolage, right? Literally just taking what is at hand, and they might be doing the best with what they have in terms of creating nice shapes and juxtapositions of color and everything. But essentially, it's not. You could argue that 19th century quilts don't have that level of sort of design and intention.
Someone could easily argue like against me that it's it's so opposite, it's the other way around.
I think it's an interesting.
It's just how I see it.
No, I think it's an interesting argument because in a way you're saying I kind of like the fact that you're seeing it like you said without understanding modern art because you can look at it in this kind of pure way, right? Because I mean you're saying you look at the stitches, you look at the craftsmanship, the amount of time that went into it. So is that what we should be valuing in art rather than who says what is good art? You know what I'm saying? I kind of actually think it's.
I thought the second that I said talking about intention and stuff because we've also argued against all those things about, like her and I, we both have different arguments on, well, one is more effort, maybe one was thought out, maybe it just kind of goes in this whole like muddled mess.
It does. That's the thing with a lot of these concepts. Like they're there, and then once you talk through them, like it's no clear. Have you noticed that? You're just kind of like, okay.
Like I feel like you can see both sides in everything.
Yeah, and I think it's a very complex. This really should be more like a 300 level class because we're not just looking at paintings and saying this is what it means. Now memorize what it means and who painted it. We're actually talking about what is art, and that's in the description for this class, right? But really what we're getting at is kind of redefining, not redefining because we've been trying to define art for a long time now, but in this particular lens, in terms of gender. Are you going to say something, Mackenzie?
Well, yeah, I think sort of the modern art versus it's the intention of creation. Again, so I guess I got to go back to the function. Because I think a lot of modern art is directly looking at the culture or the society or rebelling against the society at the time. Mm-hmm. Like you're gonna like the splattering, and that's how it's gonna be. Where I feel like quilting, it's more like I want to make something beautiful for my home, but I want it to last for my kids and their kids. And I think there's a definite tie between the home and quilt. So like you said, taking the quilts into a museum takes them out of context, and we saw quilt walls that our brothers did and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And there's definitely, I think, a much closer family tie to that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's definitely related to the mothers making quilts and having that home feeling as opposed to higher. So that's more, I guess, intention of creation.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point.
This is a really hard one because I actually have thoughts on both sides of it because hanging them on the wall like this, it does change it. Like the quilt that the woman made with everything that was left of her husband's clothing, for example, so that she could wrap herself in it. Like that, it was made for her own comfort, and hanging it on a wall to look at does change the intention that it was made for.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I've seen so many quilted pieces. Like we actually have a quilt competition every year at Costume Con. Like they're only made to be displayed. They're never meant to be used. But these were made to be used.
Right, right. And this is kind of the same debate when we're talking about non-Western art. If any of you have taken any non-Western art classes with me, Jade, you took African art, right? Anybody else? Didn't you take African art?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, did I just make that up?
Yeah. I've taken so many with you, so I can see why you
That's
would
probably why. Does anyone take any non-Western, African or Latin American? Latin American.
I've had Asian art.
Okay, okay. And this is kind of the same debate we have, especially with, I'd say, more African and Latin, well, especially like kind of pre-Columbian art, is what do we do with it, right? Because before now, we've just put it in ethnographic museums, and we haven't looked at it in terms of its aesthetic value. And then there's this whole debate, well, let's put it in the galleries, put a little little plate, glass box over it, call it art, and it's art. And then the downfall of that, or downside of that, as we were saying, is that you take it out of context. It was never meant to be viewed. It was meant to be used, not all, but most of the time, right? So this is what I'm saying is the same debate that applies to non-Western art in a way. So do you think something's lost when we don't take into consideration that this woman, and this kind of ties back into what Sanders is saying, do you think something is lost when we don't take in consideration, say, the quilt that Lauren is talking about, made by the from her husband's belongings? Do you think something's lost there, or can we just look at it purely aesthetic? And this is a much bigger debate. I realize I'm opening up here.
I think like whenever medium becomes part of the piece itself, I think that's definitely have to take that into. That definitely adds to it, whether or not where it is. I don't know. Like you can't just ignore why that medium was chosen for that purpose and for whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. There are no easy answers to this. Like I said, I'm just trying to get you to think a little bit here.
I think either way you get something different out of it. Like if you're looking at it, you don't know the history, you're going to get something different than if you had known its history. I don't think you lose something, but you might gain something by not having the background.
I think this is something to think about as we move forward. I mean, we do now commonly see, you were 5, that's a long time ago, no offense.
Fifth grade.
No, 5th grade, sorry, 5th grade. So that would be, what, I don't know, what are you, 5th grade?
11, 12.
Okay, so not
Something like that.
long ago. Okay, so how old are you?
I'm 20.
20. Okay. So still years ago. Yeah, and again, a lot of these changes have happened within the last decade. I think the question moving forward is, okay, they are art, we want to look at them, we appreciate them, and again, I think we all agree, right? But exactly how we do that without losing some of the kind of qualities that Sanders is talking about here is the question. So do we all, I mean, I said we all agree, do we all agree it's art? Okay, and let's just briefly bring up the quilting article. Not the movie, but the documentary, but the
Great American Art?
Yes, thank you. So she basically says it's art because it fulfills X, Y, and Z, right? A certain set of criteria. So what are some of those criteria?
That it is from an event, a private or public event.
Okay, private or public
And
event.
that it's made by a woman, and
Well, let me know it's made by a woman.
that was number 1, was it not?
That was a different article.
Oh, jokes.
So the one that's talking about the historic ones. So, Nusenda, you comment on this, so I know you read it.
Yeah, I just can't find it.
I know,
It's
it's
not.
kinda hard.
Yeah, mine's not coming up. I have a giant E.
Oh, that's frustrating.
We You could have just said it.
Log back in.
Oh, you there? Did we lose you?
No, I'm on my laptop for like the classroom and the stuff on my laptop. And I was trying to go to it, it wouldn't let me. I have to log back in.
Oh, okay. You know what? I'm going to take you off for the time being. But before I take you off, I mean off screen share, because that affects the connection, doesn't it?
Well, my laptop's not connected to the video though.
Yeah, but Morgan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, is it still okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was because I was on screen share before. Okay. All right, so we'll leave that there for the time being. So again, what are some of the criteria? Why in this particular article does Maynard say that it is art? Because to say it's art is all good and well, but you have to back that up.
This is still in the first article?
Yeah, this is Great American Quilt.
Okay.
Or Quilts, the Great American Art.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I know, it's late. We'll just finish off this topic, then we'll have a quick break, and then we'll come back, okay? So she's basically saying that quilts, and again, this is older. This is, I'm not sure the year of this, but this is somewhat older. Maybe 90s. But she is saying that we should consider quilts art because they fulfill a certain kind of criteria.
Yeah, I found it.
What page is it on?
That's on the first page. Yeah, it says good quilt makers are known and envied through their area, like the way fine artists was. The exceptional craftsmanship and design influenced other people when they went home. She said that's one of the reasons.
Okay,
why.
so that's one of it. It shows, it displays craftsmanship and design.
Mhm.
And then the second, influence, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was such a focus on like aesthetic choices.
Yeah, I think that quilt makers were also like, if you were good, you were known and you were envied. Like,
I know this is hard because probably some of you read that, like you read it over the weekend.
Yeah, it's been.
It's been a while. That's why I want my thing to look at, but I
It also says that the women who made quilts knew and valued what they were doing.
Okay.
They were frequently signed and dated, which I guess if you sign
Okay.
it, it's more artistic.
Okay. So well, this idea of attribution somehow in our Western world gives it more value. That's just kind of a Western. I mean, nowhere else in the world do they. Well, not nowhere else, but the idea of signing things. Yeah, is a Western idea. But yeah, the fact that they took pride in it, they were aware they were making art, and they signed it. But wait a minute, weren't we just saying that the G's bend? They didn't intend it to be art. They didn't sign it. They wouldn't have considered it art. So is that kind of, see kind of a conflict there in the argument?
I don't know if they considered it art just so much as they were proud of what they were doing.
Okay.
I think I know I would have been pretty damn proud of it if that's my on one job I got. I mean, other than chores, but that like this is my one employment. This is the one thing I can do. I can't read. So
Okay.
what am I gonna do? I'm gonna quilt. Then again, I may hate it since I've been doing it all my life, but still.
Careful, they're not all women. I mean,
I'm just saying,
depending on what
I
you're
may have been
talking about.
burned out. By the time I hit 15, I'm like, man, I have to make another quilt. Gosh darn it. I just finished one last week. Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. We do tend to kind of romanticize this, and that's kind of point I keep bringing up. Was it something that they resented? I mean, it's nice to do it when you get to choose, but when you have to, and keep making them, is it going to be the same experience?
There is an end.
where?
I experienced it. We had our last practice today, and I'm graduating, so there is an end.
I don't
So it was your last practice?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's kind of sad.
We have a giant
It's really
swim meet this
sad.
weekend.
Yeah.
Is that your last swim meet?
Our champs, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So.
Good luck.
It's gonna be sad.
For you. I would be pretty psyched. Are you kidding?
Kat was psyched. She came into the trainer and all that.
So I mean, you can kind of see a slight contradiction there, but nevertheless, she's saying that the fact that they took pride in it, they signed their names, is an indication of that we should consider this art.
And it's not in the same place, but another criteria for it, would it be the large discussion about talking about different techniques that was utilized?
Different techniques?
Yeah, here it said that as the quilt designs evolved, women went to greater plains to have their quilts fulfill their conceptions, and so they started like trading fabrics, and then that's when the quilter bees, like when people would assist other people based on their expertise.
Right. So it becomes, it's more sophisticated, right? They're putting more time into in terms of the conception of the piece. And like you said, having quilting bees and having people you can go to for advice. I mean, it's very much like our kind of, apprentice kind of painter, right? Who goes and will paint the master painter. So similar kind of idea. Good. I'm thinking also this idea of social and historical value, right? That we can look at these, just like we look at a painting and say, this is reflective of what's going on at the time, like Pollock. I know we don't get it, but if you take later 20th, Jade's in there, you'll get it. But nevertheless, it's tied, it has historical value. And the same thing here, social and historical value. And so I think we talked about this maybe the first or second week, but just to point out an example of this are the, we have the Underground Railroad patterns here. That's what we're looking at. So we're all familiar with that. So these were used. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
It was a way for them to sneak slaves out of the Confederate South.
Okay. So it was coded, right? And so they understood that these different things meant different ideas. And they were basically maps, right, through quilts. So again, historical value, right? This isn't just something somebody made and then tucked away somewhere and didn't have any kind of real historical context. Okay, so based on those, I think would we all kind of agree then that it's art, right? I mean, an hour and 15 minutes into our discussion, I hope so, because if not, you're leaving. Okay, so let's take a break there, and then we'll come back. I want to talk about fromage and just fromage, yeah? And we'll get back to this idea of why do we have to categorize. Okay. All right. So let's. If you guys want to take a break, we'll meet back at 8:30.
Okay.
Does that sound good, Lauren and Morgan?
Yep. Sure.
Okay. I'm just gonna leave you up there, though. Okay.
How are you not going to get?
Don't. This is being recorded. Don't forget. I'm not gonna go in and out just in case I mess things up. So don't say anything that you don't. That's such and such and such a bitch. Not that you don't. Or would say.
Here I have work, and I have work the next day.
At 6 p.m.
Yeah, I need to contact her.
I have nothing planned. Maybe we could watch the Mean Girls. Let me write
She goes
that
to
down.
McDaniel. It's I think
I have
it's
to be woken up to
pounds,
a birthday
not including
shot.
larger than us, but not.
I have debated whether going on Monday night and when it turns like
I think I made
midnight going into Walmart and just buying something because it's midnight and so it's the
See,
next
that's the thing
day.
with online
So
class.
it's my birthday.
What are you gonna get at a Walmart?
Because I
Mike's.
had one place for one
They are very good crafting for web. Just wrap some yarn around it. Call it
art history.
Oh, so then you'll need another one again. Or you can just get two pictures and just
I
send
could.
Literally, that's
I
what
would
I
do
do.
that. I
have those
imagine that
throughout the day.
I don't want to speak for Debbie, but I would have thought.
Go to class. I'm ready to go now. And I'm out of season.
I have actually thought about it because the next day I've
Your
been
birthday's
drawing.
like at like the perfect point.
I'm drawing all day.
I mean, I know you'll have
And
the
there's
extra
no
information
swimming.
because-
Just don't work on your hands while drinking. I'd be really sad if you come in the next day and be like,
I know. And like, I am going to contact Chris.
What is that line? This is not proportional.
And then the night before you're like, this is genius. This line has to be right
Literary
here.
art class, asking if that literary art class can substitute the philosophy.
All right.
Caroline.
I swear to God, if I don't see drunk before
There's
I
no
leave,
reason
I'm
to
gonna be
do
really
I
upset.
don't know what you want me to do.
Actually, to guzzle down a whole handle of vodka.
That
That's what I want.
Twice.
Because apparently that's what it's gonna
Is
take.
there another substitution? Oh, another.
Do you remember when we came back from the
Architecture?
Not the
Did you say that?
circus, the thing
Wait,
with
see, one of our problems here is that they.
The carnival
have
thing?
it-
Carnival.
Yeah.
So
And
like,
we're like, yeah, and I
classes
was like-
on the my transcript.
It was really funny. Yeah, we came back because you were getting tapered off. And,
So I don't know how to refer back to a class that I don't have on
just
my
a couple
transcript.
shots.
That's a lot though. There'll be like, especially here, there'll be like a midpoint where I'm like, I need to go back and get my notes back.
Where did I put this? No. I have a list of things, and I
You
haven't.
have a lot of lists.
I can't remember things, okay? It happens.
I make lists and I lose them, so I've just losing them. Do you do that too?
I have my list. Hey guys, this is recorded, but still, if you have any movies or TV shows or songs with slut shaming or virgin shaming, let me know, because I don't watch movies that often, but I have to write a paper on it.
Do you already have Easy A written down?
Yes. Mean Girls, Easy
yeah.
A, yes. Johnny Bravo. He's definitely a virgin, but he acts like he's not.
He's a pretty woman.
So I have a. Huh?
The Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman. Okay.
That's a good one.
You're gonna watch all these?
I have to at least look at the synopsis.
I mean, Glee, 'cause that has everything.
Okay.
Did you actually find your list? Or you writing it?
No, I'm writing it down on my other list, and then I redid it, and I can't find the one I made today. Wait, did I put it on here? No.
Is it in your sketchbook?
No, because I actually didn't script.
Hey, do you want to? Does it need to be something that's like it depicts slut shaming or it depicts?
Just a reference to it. It can be a reaction. It's like a 10-page research paper, so I'll tie. Yeah, I'll tie anything, which is why I'm asking.
This is something to.
Sorry.
You guys keep going.
Oh, I found it.
If you what?
I had to pick it up. Okay.
I mean, you don't know much about it. He would, but you're enlightening all of us.
But he said recent, and there's nothing recent on BBA.
I would use his paper, and then if there's keywords, because sometimes at the bottom of the page there's keywords, I utilize it. Or look up the other people that work in the paper with me.
Most of
Like,
my
I looked up, like,
face-to-face
within the
interactions
last
with
year,
her have been fun.
and there's only 99 results, but there's nothing like.
There's email correspondence, mainly that happened.
There's,
over
like,
the summer,
DPK
when
plus
I
something.
figured
What you
things
can
out.
maybe do
That
is discuss.
I hate
The nice
DPA.
Just discuss where
And then I was told
what
to
started with
not talk to her anymore.
DPA. Like, go to the origin of it. Don't look for new
Marcia
stuff.
paper. I had to just go to Marcia.
Dr. Rob.
And there were some things that were.
I
This was 2005.
I don't know anything about it.
It was 2005.
That's too old. There was a lot getting closer.
It's the 2000s.
I'm gonna do
Most
his.
of the other times.
His really is the second.
I just do it because
Look at that.
Rachel
Right
Higgins
there.
and I don't know.
It's right there.
Yeah, we
Look
don't
at him. He
know.
was published.
Dr. Rob. Yeah, I would.
Did It's been so long since I've seen this show.
Johnny Bravo.
Yeah.
Oh God. I watched like a clip of it the other day, and I'm like, why was I so into this as a kid? Like Johnny Bravo was on. I was watching it.
I was like that with Powder Puff Girls.
Nothing does happen.
No, that's like, why did I enjoy this when I was a kid?
I know.
Nothing
I
happened.
thoroughly enjoyed. Like Johnny Bravo was coming on. I was watching it.
I was like me with Powder Puff Girls or Crash
Okay, but
That
that
one
happens
too.
in Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah.
The dog. I watched the voice and I was like, that was fucked up. Yeah.
I was scared.
Well, even part of Powerpuff.
Yeah, I was just trying to kill him all the time.
Ed and Eddie always weirded me out.
I love that show.
That
See,
show
everyone
really
says
has
that, but
nothing.
I liked
it.
The thing is I probably wouldn't like watching it now.
As I grew up, I realized how good
I liked
it
it, but
was.
I don't think I really. Like, oh my god.
I don't know.
I'm like, oh my god.
I just
about
spent the
Avatar.
whole time wondering how these three boys with the same name just became friends. Like that's all I thought the whole time.
Have you ever had someone in your class with the same name as you?
No.
Speaking of someone
Speaking completely
with a very
on
common name, it happens.
But
You just
Edward.
You're just gonna take this toy out and going, hey Rachel.
Hey, Rachel.
and then you just eventually become friends because you just do that every time you see each other
See,
because you think it's hilarious.
We.
You never know. Another one.
Why is it?
It wasn't until this year that we got another Caroline on the swim team that I have shared the space with another Caroline.
I mean, I grew up with
Yeah,
another Tessa, but it's never been
this
another
is a shitty
five.
video.
You're years older than me.
Oh,
One Mackenzie once.
Kat sending me Craigslist jobs for the summer.
Really?
Yeah.
No, there was one.
I think it's a really
Mackenzie, but she was,
Seattle.
I think it's a really
Did
common
she
name
say
for Midwest,
virgin?
is what it is.
Midwest? Okay. Nah,
Because I'm from
Minnesota. I should look it up. I'm looking at this.
I went to school with a bunch of Mackenzies.
Good friend.
Do you like Mac from Mackenzie?
I mean, I go by that, but Mackenzie's good too. Whatever.
You don't have a preference?
I mean, I don't know. With like teachers, I try to Mackenzie more. Because it's like more formal. Like,
Yes, oh my god, the
But
old
like back in
cartoon
like,
network.
I think I have to call you Mac
Oh,
last
really?
semester.
Yeah.
So like every
Emailed
time I
me.
see Mackenzie, I like have to like
Undergraduate?
natural.
Do you want to get your undergraduate?
I would have transferred right now. I think that's in that hell already.
Okay, because then it would be too like,
Decide to go to
Yeah, just decide.
just
Yeah, the only
Yeah.
one, 'cause I've had friends who are like, it's just like, her Mackenzie, like, who's Mackenzie? And I'm like, this is me. That is my name.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So,
And a few minutes.
that's so different. It's popular.
Casual reminder, Cartoon Network never cared.
You know, I wanna like
I either
the
did-
shows. Like I watched
The old shows.
watch
Oh my god.
like the new shows and
They're stupid.
They're not all terrible.
which one is not terrible?
Regular show's actually pretty good.
I-
I think it is. Adventure Time used to be good, and then it just got really weird.
Yeah.
Like, way too weird.
They're really animated now. I think
Really
that's
into
what I
Gravity
don't like.
Falls, but that's because of like factors.
Gravity Falls is great.
It's actually
a very fantastic
yeah.
show.
I've heard that. What is that?
It's only for 2 seasons. It's I think I don't know where it runs. I just rented
It was on Disney. It's
I'm
about
gonna look it up
to
now.
end. It ends this weekend.
It does like it.
Oh, if it's ending, then I can watch it.
Yeah, it ends.
I like a
within the
season
next
a day.
week At some point.
It's really good. It's like a treasure
But
hunting
it's
kind of show.
yeah, it's got a really intense plot.
Oh.
So like
I've seen things about this on 9gag. I didn't know what it was.
it's really good.
But they like.
Lauren really likes it.
Yeah, that may have been where I heard it.
It hit some pretty intense topics. Like, whew, wasn't ready for that.
There's some deers who get turned into male monks.
Oh yeah, there's like that.
Okay, everybody mark your calendar. March 21st. I forgot to mention this.
Oh boy.
March 21st. It's a Monday at 6:30. That works right. We're gonna have pizza.
Oh.
There you go.
There's March 21st.
Cold.
It's 6:30. I'm having
Monday,
pizza.
6:30.
Yeah, we're going to watch a film called Misrepresentation. Have I mentioned this in here? Have you heard of the film Misrepresentation?
Talk about it in modern.
Oh, in
In modern art.
That's
Contemporary
6:30.
artist. No, do we not
You know what?
I don't think so.
I will hopefully see it.
It'll go off like 2 months from now. You're like, what is this?
It's basically about, media perception of women.
Yeah.
And then they made a male version, like media perception of men. And so I haven't heard back, but we've invited Hamden Sydney.
Oh, you're saying about that.
Donna will love that.
That'd be cool.
Boys
I thought it would be
Boys.
Boys and pizza.
And then work right afterwards. Oh my goodness, what a day.
So we thought we'd watch the
I'll
film
take
together. It's
pizza.
like an hour or something, and then have a
Go back to the
discussion.
room.
So, we can get male feedback on this subject, which I think would be kind of interesting. And then I'm kind of secretly hoping that then they'll invite us over there and we can watch the male one, and then we can have it like reverse. So that would be next
Can you
semester.
reach out to their dude that's over there that teaches like masculinity?
Well, I have talked to Sarah Hardy. She's involved. I know her, so I started with her.
Oh.
I haven't heard back yet, but it's actually her idea.
Are you talking
And
about?
we were talking last year, and she, or whenever it was, and she mentioned it, and so I think she'll be on board. Just whether the date will work, I don't know.
You said 6:30 though?
That's what it is for now. If they can't do it, we might change it, but if you could just kind of pencil that in.
I don't
We're gonna get together and watch a movie with guys from Hampton City about
Physically
women. Yes. Women. Yes.
Okay.
No,
Boys.
because
And
I've heard about it's about
and eat
having a
pizza
bullshit
and
thing in
then
my
have a
tuition
discussion.
money. Why should I give them a
It's
penny?
also a way of promoting
penny
the
goes
gender
to my sweet
studies
tea.
program. So we're gonna do.
I would give them
fun.
fun.
But some of you may want to consider gender studies minor. I mean,
What? Like, honestly,
Because I went
no, not you, not you. You have too many.
No. I mean, what is?
I have one minor.
You're too
Describe
close to
what
finish
that
it.
is now.
I don't know.
Exactly.
I'm an engineering major.
I heard
I'd
that it's like
any
something that
minor would be
comes
cool,
and
but
they'll
I don't
take
know
the
if I'll
money.
get there.
One minor.
But only if it's 100%.
I'm at the studio.
Of everyone?
So what's going to happen?
Although I'm
is
not
not
taking
100%.
I don't know.
You know what it is? It could be a good marketing
So you're not technically a studio art minor then?
No, and it's going to be very dependent on the last semester when I can get done ahead of time, which is very dependent on what I can take in the summer, which is like kind of all over the place.
You have a student.
You have a
Pretty good
student
schedule, which is a bummer, but
GPA.
with a good GPA.
And
Good work ethic.
Yeah. There's gotta be a way.
If I do say so myself.
What we're all about, right?
yeah.
I tried, okay?
And, like, luckily I think
I get my ducks in a row and I try and count them,
which is
but it
kind
doesn't
of
always
cool.
work.
How dare you have a major and a
I'll-
minor?
After this class, we'll see how
And a
much
varsity
Be an
sport.
athlete. No.
Wow.
Yeah,
Shit.
yeah.
You're a sophomore, right?
Not doing enough.
Doesn't feel like it here now.
I just showered.
Women artists.
Exactly. So when you label it down in a resume, you're like, what have I done with my life?
And it was like,
Might have taken some
I went to school. Sounds about right. And I didn't sleep at all, and I was busy all the time, so what did I do?
Yeah.
Nothing apparently.
Oh, sorry, we lost track of the time. Okay. All right. Lauren and Morgan, you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had to put on fins.
Morgan too?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we're just missing Sarah, but we're going to get started. She can join in. So let's start with this whole thing about why do we have to have categories? I mean, really, you could say, why do we have to have a class like this, right? Are we just reinforcing those binaries by having a women artist course? And this is something when I teach my normal women artist seminar, that's what we start with. Should we even have this course, or is this continuing to reinforce those binaries that we're trying to get rid of?
I think it depends on if you're taking it in a historical context or we're looking at art alone. Because I mean, you mentioned like we can't forget the past and things like that, and I agree with that because you don't want to fall back into what was. Like you have to understand the past so you don't make the same mistakes. But I don't think so. You can talk about it in a historical context. That's important so we all know what has happened. But if I'm just looking at art alone, I don't think I should. You put that on it, and then you automatically form that binary, and then you're playing into it.
Okay. So you're saying your personal viewing, you don't necessarily need to consider whether it's a piece that's done by a male or a woman. If you're standing in a museum. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I think it depends on subject matter.
Okay.
I think if it's like family portraits or family sort of things, I think that would hold different context to me if it was like a mom making that as opposed to. I mean, like dads can, but like I think it'd just be different in my mind, and I would like to know that. If it's relevant. If it's like not irrelevant to the subject, then.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also think it was relevant in terms of like a lot of people paint nudes of women. And I feel like it has very different context if it's a man painting a nude woman as opposed to a woman painting a nude woman.
Okay.
And then within that, if she's straight or a lesbian, it has a different context too.
Okay. Yeah, and remember, we're concentrating on gender, but as Sanders points out in his article, and Morgan mentioned it as well, I mean, the same thing applies to race, gender orientation, all these things are factored in here. Okay, so any other thoughts? You kind of agree with this? Are you kind of in consensus that there's a time and place? So, for instance, I would want to know if it had something to do, let's talk about gender orientation. So, if they were addressing their identity, say it was someone who identified as being bisexual, homosexual, I'd want to know if they were, right? You're kind of assuming they are, but there'd also be it wouldn't be quite as authentic if they weren't, right? I mean, that's who they are. It's part of it. You can't separate the piece from the. I wouldn't argue if they're not addressing their gender orientation, then it doesn't matter. I would argue. But if they are, you need to know that, right? To see this as an authentic expression of their identity.
I agree. Yeah. Well, it's like, was it when we looked at like modernist feminism art, like in the beginning, right? Feminism, it was like aggressive, like vagina pictures and all this stuff, because we can and we are women, and that was like specifically highlighting the cultural feeling at the time, and that feels important. Because if a guy was doing that, it'd be like, oh, you're objectifying again. But if a girl does it, then it's like, no, she's not objectifying.
Right. Which kind of ties in with what Rachel was saying too. Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk about vagina art tonight too.
So that's, I mean, in our literary criticism class earlier today, the Kat's, how do you say the name of the article that put your thing on? Kristeva. At first, like just the name by itself, I thought it was a woman, and I was like, oh no, it's a man, and then I was confused. But I realized that the gender mattered a lot to me when I was reading that, and where it was coming from.
Okay, so I'm gonna share a little story with you. Okay.
It's being recorded. Shut the recorder. We're gonna leave the recording.
I'm not gonna say names. I'm not gonna say names. Okay. So there was a little debate here, and it's just a little thing. It's not even just straight out looking at me like. I kind of felt that up tonight. Shutting my door. But some submitted a course for the gender studies to count towards the gender studies program. I'm head of the gender studies program here, by the way. So someone submitted that to it, and they were told it doesn't have anything to do with women. And the name of the course was French female poetry or something like that. So and I heard this little debate. So the one person said, but you can be a woman and not talk about your gender. Another person is saying, how can that be possible? We're always speaking our gender. I mean, that's who we are, right? So whose side would you be on?
I think that's a debate between sex versus gender.
Yeah.
Doesn't it lie more in that? And in that, like, if you're doing gender, if you're identifying as female, in that sort of way, you're probably playing into, like, things that are considered feminine and associated with women. Mm-hmm. So thus, I mean, it does have to do with women.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Could we stop sharing screen again? Sorry.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't talk when you're sharing the screen.
I was just about to get to it, but let me
stop sharing blue button at the bottom.
It's a blue button.
Is it this one?
No, very bottom.
Oh, right there. Thank you. I know. I'll get it one of these days. No problem.
I think that this relates to just so much stuff because, like, the other day my friend and I were having a conversation about, like, Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, and, like...
Oh, yeah.
And I think that it relates to it because we're constantly thinking our gender just of how we're being perceived because we were talking about how Bernie can get away with all these different things, like being messy, being funny, being, like, yelling things and stuff, and Hillary could never do that because she's a woman. Things are going to be perceived way differently than things would be perceived if Bernie did it. And so I think regardless if we're really speaking our gender or not, we are.
Yeah. It reminds me, my daughter just showed, I don't watch SNL. I used to back in the good old days, but I haven't watched it in years. And she showed me the skit. Did you watch the skit, how they did the Democratic debate? Oh, it's hysterical. We won't watch it, but you should watch it. It's really funny.
Can you pull Hillary Clinton's?
Yeah, well, they have a new girl doing her, a new woman, and she's quite. I know she was good, but this new one's quite good because she's changed, right? So she's kind of captured the new Hillary, and so anyway, it was funny because
is it when she goes to sleep?
It's not that one, but my daughter did show me that one. But they're debating, and and Hillary looks over and she goes, "Oh, it must feel so good to swear in public." And she goes, I have to swear into a tiny little jar. I mean, but she's really making a statement about gender there, right? Anyway, to go off on a tangent. Go ahead, Phil Morgan. Did you finish your thought? You did. Well, you're saying we basically that gender whether we are aware of it or not.
Yeah. Hey, did you also see Hillary's, like, glassware that she has?
No, glassware?
Yeah, it's like, it says, like, made with broken, like it's something along the lines of like it's made from breaking the glass ceiling or something cool like that.
Oh, no.
But so that's just funny that you're talking about like the in the jar thing and how it was all because her whole like so much of her stuff is based upon feminism. But yeah, no, that kind of just like closed off my thought that we don't really have a choice whether or not our gender speaks.
Yeah. Do we agree with that?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if I got up and started giving a really like a raging speech about feminism, it's not going to be taken as seriously as if like if a man got up and talked about feminism, like, oh, if you can convince him, like, well, I'm on the bandwagon.
Well, and I also think this idea that somehow the words that come out of our mouths are sort of they're not affected by our gender is, I think, a little naive, right? We like to think of this free-thinking individual, you know, but we are social constructs, right? And part of that is gender. So what we say and what is not acceptable, like the swearing, right?
I would agree with that because, like, before, like, I had 3 brothers and, like, very, like, male household. And in that, like, my brothers could get away with cursing, my dad would curse. But, like, if I curse, dear God, like, what did you just say? I'm going to wash your mouth. That was so.
Right.
And when I came to college and came here, like, now I just curse like a sailor. I don't care. And then I go home and I'll cuss and they're like, watch your mouth. I'm like, I don't have to. I'll be like, he just cussed.
It's the same way with me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would agree with you.
Sweetbriar's made you into
No, I mean, it actually, like, I didn't realize how much, like, I changed myself or, like, adjusted myself until I came here, and I'm like, well, why am I doing that? I don't have to.
I've actually been told by a professor who worked at VMI, which is like mostly male dominant, and then he came and worked here. And he says that we're worse than males here than we are at VMI.
There's that idea that men become women.
We can only do it here.
Yeah.
But like he says that we're more vulgar. We're meaner and like we're meaner to like each other, but then like it's usually in a joking way. But we're also more like slobby because like we just don't care about our but like at VMI like
these are my nice leggings.
but like he didn't mean it like in a bad way, like oh your clothes are dirty, but like to dress up and everything. He's like kind of nice and like refreshing because he was like worried about coming and working here, and he's like I kind of like it.
Yeah. Are you worried about the stereotypes like girls looking all pretty?
I think he was a little bit
here because of that.
But
I
didn't realize how vulgar you guys kind of are and everything. And, like, I mean, Caroline cussed right in front of him yesterday. I mean, he got it. It was Dr. Rob. And like
Dr. Rob cussed first.
He did.
I said a word that sounded like the F word, and I was like, yeah, and I was trying to be respectful because he's my professor, and then I repeated after him, like, yeah, I don't know, like he said something to the fact, I don't know what the fuck's going on, so I'm like, yeah, I don't know the F's going on either. I said that
you didn't
I
say is when you said
no. I said I don't know what the F's going on either.
But did you say F or did you say?
No, I said that before, and he's like, I don't know what the fuck's going on, and I'm like, well, fuck.
But like, so like he was like, I kind of like it. And it was like, and then like it got me thinking, like we really like don't fit like the stereotype of being like around all women. People think like we're all like preppy and everything, but then
the pink bubble.
Half of us are like
that's what our
right
website
now.
shows. But then you get here.
I mean, if you look around the room, most of us are in sweats right now.
Well,
So
I think she has a question.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I just did it too. I was going to say, we wrote a study about women use different words more. Like they use the word just, and I just did it.
Oh,
And take it as a way to justify and to step away from the language that you're using rather than being as strong or as forceful like as a man might write the same business letter.
Right.
You help distance yourself from that, and like you're asking rather than demanding something, even though you have to demand it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not just in swearing, but in all kinds of language.
I realized that in an
Aware.
email because you'll say like, I'm just wondering if, instead of being like, I need this now at this time.
Do you guys not use just then? I hadn't thought of that before.
They
don't
might,
think
but
I've
it's
ever
not.
seen
But
that.
now that I realize that I do that, now all my emails are very.
I read that article.
What's that?
It drives me nuts now that I've read that article, and I find myself looking at things that my male friends write versus what I write, and I know that I do it so much more than they do, and it's conditioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will you post a link to that article on our on the classroom?
I'll try to find it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can, that'd be good.
We've also done different comparisons in our comm classes because I'm also a communications major, and we've like my professor purposefully would ask certain questions, and then the certain women who weren't like as assertive, I guess, so therefore like that's a masculine characteristic, assertiveness is, and so if they weren't as assertive. Sorry. But we found ourselves saying like, I don't know if this is right, but, or those kind of introductory phrases.
So you've actually seen it firsthand in this
Yeah, we compare gender responses a lot.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
I went to Google it to try and find the article, and there is now a Chrome app that helps women stop saying just and sorry.
Oh, wow. I'm really bad at sorry. You probably caught that. And it started young. It started very, very young. And I remember people saying stop apologizing. Yeah. And it never really entered my mind that it was my gender. I really do think it has a lot to do with gender, though.
My boyfriend actually, I say sorry all the time.
And does he tell you to
Like,
stop
and
apologizing?
he's like, why are you apologizing? I was like, oh, honestly, like, I don't know. How do you feel like I'm sorry?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's say stop. You're sorry. And
But like, what do you say after they like tell you to stop? Like, sorry. It's just an automatic response, and they're like, you just said it.
Like, I literally said sorry after he said that, and he was like staring. I was like, sorry.
But like, is like, what else do you say back to it? Nothing, or
yeah.
Like I introduced the just article by saying I just wanted, and then paused. Realized what I'd done.
And something else, I think I read an article a bajillion years ago about, like, if a woman, for instance, in school in particular, if a woman is getting, like, a female is getting bad grades, like, if she's getting good grades, oh, you're smart, you're, a smart little girl, but supposedly, in this article, when guys get good grades, they're like, oh, you worked really hard. So when they get bad grades, guys think they need to work harder, and when women get bad grades, they think they're not smart enough.
That's interesting, huh?
Yeah. Which I think I'm totally, like, that is definitely affected me, because my person is like, I'm not smart enough in this particular subject.
Yeah, I think I've been affected by that too.
I hate that my brother can get good grades without trying.
My brother gets, like, C's or worse, and I've always gotten A's. Like, it's just...
So basically, we would side with the teacher that said, this is a class about women writers, it's gender, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was really shocked what the other professor said, but you can be a woman without talking about gender. Without talking about it, without reflecting it, without engaging in it.
I mean, yeah, it permeates into everything you do. And that's true of any identity.
Yeah, yeah. But back to your statement too, in terms of like art is art and not to categorize it and stuff. I know it's easy, and I think Sanders makes this point that, let's see, I don't want to try to paraphrase it because I'll ruin it, but something to the effect that, and I might even have said something on the discussion board about it.
Paraphrase it. Let me paraphrase.
Is that what I said?
No, but that's what you, like, the general gist of what you said. I don't want to paraphrase it and got your iPad up. And
well, I'm going to try to quote it. Yeah, let me see. Okay. Okay. Basically, he's saying that all art, I can't find it exactly. I'm sure I had it underlined. All art is mediated. But there's no such thing as like art is produced and then we consume it. There's always a mediator. Someone saying, this is art, this isn't art, we're going to hang it this way, it's going to be this. So it's never pure. So to say it's art because I say it's art and it's out there, it's never that way because there's some kind of mediator in between. And that's really essentially what we're trying to do is look at these mediators, right? Oh, look at my hands. I'll play something. But do you see what I'm saying though? That so just understand that our art is always going to be mediated. Do you understand what I mean by that?
But it shouldn't.
I think it's mediated because that's what we like to do. If
I
you
think
think about our
it's
society.
inevitable. I mean, even in non-Western societies, it's going to be mediated. You know, someone's going to say, you know, go to this guy for this thing, he's really good. You know what I mean? You're always going to,
And we
it's just human nature.
And we put labels on things and categorize things.
It's fine.
Her building.
Oh, sorry, not distracting.
No, you're
Oh, you're building.
You're fine.
Oh, okay.
Just ignore it. I think. But then you sidetrack me. What were you saying? Oh, categories. Okay, we put labels and categories on things because we have to in order to understand them. Like, I mean, when we classify animals, it's so we can better understand them. Each classification has these traits that go along with it. You know, it's to better understand and to think about and to talk about art. And if you went into a museum and tore off all the labels and you didn't know who was by what, I don't know, like you're still losing something when you do that. And even if you didn't, we'd still assign an identity to it. Like, oh, the big red one that's over there. And then you have the associations of the word big and the color red. Like, no matter what you do, there's going to be labels put on it, whether they're printed and put on the wall or if they're just in your head to use and you're using them to think about the piece, you're still putting labels on it. So you can try your hardest not to have labels, you're still going to have them.
You're still going to have, but and also, any other comments? Sorry, I don't want to dominate.
I mean, but that's kind of going back to like the arts and craft debate where we're calling it a craft, but through that article, all I was seeing was that that the word craft was being used and we're calling it craft and almost created in a sense just to exclude someone. So if we're just using the word, the label, the categorization to exclude someone, we shouldn't have it. Like, it shouldn't exist.
I agree. I think everyone would agree. I guess we're getting better at that, maybe.
Well, and the idea is, like, I feel like, yes, a lot of this isn't the reality of the situation, but we should always be working towards the ideal. So instead of saying, well, that's how it is, well, it's like, well, let's discuss how it should be and work towards that.
I'm not saying give up.
Well, and this is, I mean, just to kind of, I don't mean to bring Sanders back into it again, but he does have a lot of good points. Right at the very beginning, he says, I argue that separations are in the interest of those seeking to sustain class, race, and gender domination. That's a pretty important statement.
Did you say dinner?
Gender.
Oh, I heard gender.
I argue that separations are...
I definitely heard dinner.
No. That could be like total slip because I haven't had lunch or dinner. That's kind of scary, right? Okay. Yeah.
Freudian slip.
Except in not even sex, but that's just desire. Okay, so I argue that separations are in the interest of those seeking to sustain class, race, and gender domination. That's a pretty assertive. So he's saying is basically these categories are created to reinforce this hierarchy, which we've established here, right? If we've gotten anything out of that, it's going to be that. And what he said is, and what we need to do then is not. You're right. Look forward and say we don't need these and question them. But part of it is also breaking down. So as he continues to, then we need to look at, one, how and why the enjoyment of art and craft have been socially regulated. Two, he has this list. So it's looking at the mediators, looking at them critically. So it's all good and well to say we're looking for something better, but until you criticize the mediators, it's not going to change. Do we agree, disagree? Follow, not follow? Dinner. Oh, man. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about Femage then. You guys didn't really like her, did you?
No, I did
not. Oh, I love her. I'm going to show you a picture. Because she's just like...
Also, it's just really difficult to read. Something about her writing style really put me off.
Well, remember, she's not a writer. She's an artist. Yeah.
I'm sure that's part of it, but it's still...
I find that a lot of feminist articles written around that time tend to put me off automatically because they are breaking new ground at that point in time, but at this point we've moved beyond that, and it's hard now to look at it through that lens of you had to be that forceful about it at that point or nobody would have listened.
Exactly.
It's really hard to step back from that.
So that's a hugely important point in terms of her writing, but even in terms of the art. Like I said, I've seen this generation. They're like, why did you have to do that? Why do you have to be so aggressive? And why did you have to put your vagina out there all the time? And just kind of do you know what I'm saying? But they had to. Maybe I could have.
Oh, we just
That's one of our friends.
So one of my friends she is very comfortable and she's my roommate, so she
Oh.
just strips. And I told Mary, I'm like, that's talking about cat.
One time she.
So like literally hitting her vagina.
So like yesterday.
Yes, like yesterday.
Like she was trying to get her ice bag off and literally lifted up her shirt, and like you could see like her bra and all that. And me knowing her, I'm like, oh, is your ice bag okay? And then I was like realizing like we were in Protho in public, and she was just, and we all kind of had that moment, and we were like, oh wait, cat.
We're all so used to.
She's the literary art person, right?
She is, yes.
That's funny. I'm not looking at the same thing.
She
She had a bra, right?
She had a bra on, but it was just like,
Thank God, that
it
day.
was just like, she was standing right here, and I was just like,
And it wasn't even like, oh, cover yourself. It was, what are you doing?
she came in a huff, she like threw her stuff down, and then immediately just I was like, hey, what are we doing?
So do you guys, are you kind of, I mean, we're still kind of, I mean, does she walk around without underwear on too? Is this what I'm sensing?
For my sake, as her roommate, she
Yeah.
says that she wears an underwear bra when she walks around.
Okay.
If she lived alone, I don't know.
She probably wouldn't.
No,
Is it because she's embracing the vagina, or is it because she's just, well,
She
she's
really,
more comfortable?
really hates pants.
Like, so she's not like,
if she
My
could not
roommate
wear
really,
pants-
really hates pants, but she likes underwear.
I mean, Kat has
There's a difference
Kat has an
between
obsession with
pants.
underwear. Like every time Victor,
Yeah, I am.
Okay, I'm going to screen share with you again, okay?
this is recorded. Whoops.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry, Kitty.
It's actually live. You can tell her to join us. Just rewind.
I'm sure really.
Okay. So,
Oh dear. I didn't actually show her naked though, so it's okay.
And anyone that
Okay,
knows her
I'm sorry I
knows.
keep, I'm so such a dunce about this. They see this or they see this?
Why do you have a picture of this
top.
woman?
There's one without tabs.
Every time she shows her butt, is that still, every time she still shows her butt, is that still an ongoing project?
Oh, because I had to move it down.
Yeah,
Yes.
come on, let me see. You see her butt a lot. Anywhere.
Oh,
You're like,
when she
yeah.
was asleep, I was gonna take pictures of her. Because her blanket would be over.
Okay, I'm just
I didn't
going to
actually
hold up
get
an
over
image
that.
here. For some reason, it's taking its time.
Well,
Okay.
Maybe one
So
day.
let's do a bit of background, and then we'll talk about homage.
It's art.
So is anybody familiar with this piece on the screen? Can anybody tell us about it? This is Judy Chicago's dinner party.
We talked about it a couple of times.
Yeah.
We talked about it very briefly at the end of class when we had disconnected from our online students, and that was the night a lot of people were gone. But I don't think we've talked about it otherwise. But let's review, even if we have. What's so funny over there?
Sorry, I said that it's the cover on one of the Survey 2 books.
Yes, it is. And that, you know, that's actually a pretty big deal that it's on the cover of a survey book.
Like when I first saw it, I was like, hey, I remember that.
Yeah, but when I was in school, I think I told you this before, I'm 44. I'm not that old. When I was in school, I think we talked about Mary Cassatt. That was it. Women were not in textbooks. I mean, art history textbooks, survey textbooks. They were just written out, right? So the fact that she's in there and she's on the front is kind of cool. I know that's, you know, just to kind of elaborate on what you're saying. Okay, so let's talk about what she's doing because, I mean, I know if we talked about this, we didn't go into a lot of detail, and I do want to talk about this. So this is from 1970, what, somebody look that up, 1970, 71. Okay, so what is she doing here? You can't have a women artist class without talking about the dinner.
79.
79, okay, it's later than I thought. 79.
It's feminist artwork, and each place setting is representative of a famous woman or female deity.
Okay. So here I have, on the left, it's the first, the fertility goddess or fertile goddess. We talked about that. Notice it's all about weaving. And then the last one is Georgia O'Keeffe. Okay. So what do you notice about these place settings?
Wait, you said the one on the left was what?
Just a fertility goddess, a generic fertility goddess.
Okay.
I took one look at it. It was like, oh look, it's Georgia O'Keeffe's giant clay vagina.
It is. And you know, part of it, all of them, all of the plates, so you can even see the fertility goddess, it looks kind of vaginal. O'Keeffe's especially because she's been accused of using, yeah. And she denied it was there, by the way. She said those vaginas are not there, and she is a big fat liar.
It's just
like Picasso with the African masks.
Yeah. It's like what Christiva was saying today. You just never believe anybody, whatever they say.
Stop. Yeah.
Okay, so so we see this vaginal iconography. This is what the feminine artists are all about, is embracing the vagina. And I mean, it's funny, you kind of giggle, but it's true. Because for so long, it was all in the closet, right? You almost had to pretend.
I have a vagina? What? What would be that idea?
Oh my god, nobody ever told me.
I would never.
For instance, there was a piece that she was involved in called Woman House, and they took a rundown house in Los Angeles, and a group of women and men were invited as well, these weren't men haters, they kind of constructed this house, and one of the rooms was a bathroom, and it was all like pristine white. Why are you guys laughing?
No, I just these pens cracking me up.
Okay.
Do I need to put them down?
Maybe that's a bit distracting.
Sorry. I just really enjoyed it.
You're showing your artistic qualities. I embrace that. Okay, so anyway, so one of the bathroom, pristine, white, everything. And then over in the corner is this, have we seen this before? Is a trash can, white trash can, overflowing with bloody tampons. They're not real. Why put that in art?
Wait, do they have pads too, or just tampons?
Oh, probably both. I don't know.
Okay.
Is that like object, like the study of the art of the object, right?
Man, you got a lot last time. Last semester. Okay, yeah, there is part of this, and actually Christiva talks about it too, or Christiva talks about it too. This idea of the abject, the kind of bodily fluids and so on. But yeah, but in terms of gender, why do that? Is it just shock value? And if you say that, I'm going to throw you out. That's never a good answer.
I mean, I think it's an attempt to normalize it. Like, I think if you don't see it, and then, like, because I know, like, one time I went to Target with my older brother. I was like, crap, I got to get something. I went to get tampons. And he, like, freaked out. He, like, started walking the cart away from me. I'm like, I need them. Like, and I feel like if it was normalized with everyone and everyone kind of accepted, we wouldn't have to, I don't have to hide the tampon in my jacket when I have to go somewhere, or it's not weird, like, oh yeah, just go through my purse and find it and not feel weird about you seeing all my tampons.
Yeah.
Like, they even market towards that, like the Tampax compacts that are like smaller, so they're easier to fit in your pocket and be subtle about it. Like,
yeah, that's a good point. It's reinforcing this idea that it's somehow shameful.
Yeah, and like, I know for a fact, my younger brother had no idea what a box of pads looked like until we were at Target one day and I grabbed a box of pads and he looked at it and went, why does Rachel get to get a box of pixie sticks?
How old is he?
It's really unfair.
He was like 13 when this happened.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
He's 18 now. This was a few years ago.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, isn't it? Because it's something, it's hush-hush.
And it's in the back of the store. Like, I know for Walmart, they hide it in behind, like, it's all, like,
It was in, like, this little cutout area, basically, by the pharmacy.
Like, go there for
Oh,
this
at Walmart it is.
Yeah.
Other stores don't. They're like
At
next
Target,
to
it's
adult
just
diapers.
At Target, it's just next to all of them.
But at Walmart,
Yeah,
it's like,
there's like
let
a
me hide
big.
this. I don't know if it's like intentional or it's just like.
Well, it's also back with like the
and
comics.
that's at my Walmart too. It's like you have all of the like normal, like shampoo, all of that stuff, and then there's this like little alcove where they hide the pads and the condoms.
Of course.
That's interesting. So the pads and the condoms together.
But I think it's more acceptable, like, if a guy drops his wallet and a condom falls out.
Right.
It's
Everyone's
different
like far less shocked than if it was a.
If a girl dropped her handbag and had a, like, tampon or pad that fell out.
Yeah.
It's like, it's shameful. It's
Not
like
my
an eye or something
Yeah.
not to admit to.
Right.
Which I think can also go along with, like, if somebody does know that you're on your period, then they're going to assume that you're, like, really grumpy because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, then they'll start
God.
adding these different labels and stereotypes to it. So, like, if you are mad about something, they're just going to write you off because they think that, oh, it's because she's on her period.
Oh, that bugs me so much.
Or when I'm not, it's like, why are you angry? You're not on your period. My dad does that shit all the time.
I'm sorry, just because I'm on my period doesn't mean anything I'm saying is less valid. Like,
I mean
stop
that my
it.
tolerance for crap is a little bit because, you know, I'm bleeding out of my vagina.
If someone says that, you should be like, well, you know, because I'm bleeding, I can make you bleed too.
No, I swear, living with like 2 older brothers, I swear they also go through PMS too.
Oh, they do. They
So we're not the only
and
ones.
they're worse. They are so
They
much
are. Like my brother has like mood swings once a month, and like it's timed cycles. So like we avoid him at least once a month. So it's not only us.
God, I've never noticed that with my brother.
Yeah.
Get 3 brothers. And
I mean,
they
I don't have
sync
3.
up.
I only
They'll
have
sync
2.
up. They do.
So that might have something
They don't sync up with me. They sync up with each other.
I just want to point out something here too with this, and I didn't learn this till we went last year to New York, and I saw it in person, and the guard told me because I didn't even notice it. This is probably something that you may be familiar with. This might be something new. Actually, I'm going to go underneath. I'm going to point. Okay, so I know it's hard for Morgan and Lauren, but basically on the right side of the triangle, they're flat. The plates are all flat. So if you follow it back all the way around, because it's chronological. Okay, so if you work here, and then right around in here, when you get like to the like mid-19th centuries, actually might be back in here, it starts getting more 3-dimensional. So like if we look back at these 2 here.
What museum is this at?
Sorry?
Which museum is this at?
Brooklyn Museum of Art. They have their own special collection of feminist art. This is separate in a whole room. You go into a separate room.
Zoom in. You can kind of see it.
Well, here, I'll show you here. So see how the fertility goddess is flat, more 2-dimensional? And the Georgia O'Keeffe is more 3-dimensional. It was symbolic of the rising up of women against.
That's so cool. Do you know if there's a particular reason she chose to do a triangle instead of?
Yes, because triangle is
femininity.
Okay, it's the kind of
I figured that was it, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, and also don't forget that if we look back, in the middle, Morgan and Lauren, are you familiar with this piece?
Yeah, relatively.
Okay. Yeah, in the middle we have 999 little triangular shaped tiles with the names of women whose names have been lost into history.
What?
And it's not just art, it's all women. So this is all a celebration of women's contributions to history.
Wait, did it have water in it at the museum?
No, it just looks like it because the shadow, there's no water. It's just the tiles reflecting the light.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I really should have looked harder at this at the museum.
So, so again, you know, a lot of people, when this was actually first introduced, and it eventually made its way to Brooklyn Museum of Art, it went before Congress and they debated it. And they said, this is obscene and we need to get rid of it.
And that's because Congress is made of mostly men.
A bunch of old white guys debating over it.
It's like when they cut off all the dicks in Vatican City.
Yeah.
On the statues, not on the people. I probably should have clarified that. They cut them off of the statues and threw it in the room. They just had this room full of dicks. I am 100% positive because they're actually currently doing a restoration project where they're trying to figure out which statue each one holds.
I have not heard of that. I thought you were just talking about like
I can
you know,
imagine
when
being
the wrong president went to Italy, they covered up.
I can just picture people going, does this one fit? Does this one fit?
The human body's beautiful.
So I guess women have suffered too, right?
Well, yeah, they can't cry in public. They're told that, oh, you have to do this and be a man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I rarely ever hear be a woman. Because, I mean, that also isn't really empowering. That's like saying be weak. Like, that's.
Yeah, normally be a woman's associated with make me dinner.
Say that again?
Normally go be a woman is associated with make me dinner.
Yeah.
With what?
Make me dinner.
Yeah.
Oh, ew. Although I think that's so ironic
Or
because
PMS.
we're the ones, like, giving birth to a child is incredibly painful. Like, I think our bodies are a lot stronger from the entire pain tolerance. So if you be manly and tough, like where
You get so mad.
And that's
Well, I
why
make
Hampton
myself a
City has a
sandwich.
men's studies
Throw it in the
program.
fridge.
I was shocked when I heard that because I was so firmly ingrained in feminism. I was like, they have a men's study. Men don't need studies. But now you can see now we do need to study masculine as much as we do. Notions of masculinity as much as constructive.
It's changing a lot now too, I think.
Why? Did y'all animate it there?
Well, there's
We looked at the classes that they during the break between classes.
Oh,
Actually,
okay.
sounds like
Interesting.
interesting.
Yeah. So both genders suffer with this. We need to.
Well, I don't know. There's a line
He needs that.
There was the We Are Kings demonstration that's supposed to happen in Lynchburg. I don't know when, and they're like the men in this group that's like, and it's, if you like look at some of their quotes, it's like rape isn't always like legit, like women are just shaming it, like there's like all this stuff that's like
Okay, that is very different.
No, but there was like supposed to be like a national meetup day recently, and one of them was
Oh my
in
god, that's
Lynchburg.
where we yeah. Oh,
Yeah, the We Are Kings.
Oh, and I have it up at UVA too. My daughter was telling me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them ended up canceling because people threatening to go yell at them, and they were like, I don't want to get yelled at. And
Kind of going off topic, but did you hear about that, Lauren and Morgan?
oh yeah.
You have heard about that?
Heard about what?
What is it
It's
called?
the
Make rape legal protests.
Yeah, the We Are Kings meetup.
It's legitimate too.
I read the entire article and I wanted to talk a little bit.
Somebody was talking over the other person.
And then we're all quiet.
If you just Google We Are Kings, I think it's We Are Kings meetup. There was supposed to be one in like Lynchburg. Yeah. Wait. Or that's not the name of it. What is this? I can't find it anymore.
Here.
The rest of you had heard about that?
Yeah.
I heard about the one at UVA.
Yeah, I just wanted just Google make rape legal meetup, and you'll find a whole bunch of articles on it.
Oh my Jesus.
Yeah.
There's more.
You do that.
You'll find
And this is why we need classes like this. This is why, no, seriously, this is why we need to, even though ideally we don't want to, this is why we need to continue to address gender, because we're not where we want to be, right?
Return of the King.
Yeah,
You agree with that?
Return of the Kings.
They make me very.
That takes three things.
You should. I mean, it's misogyny, and it's alive and well. And
Oh,
we
it's
get-
beyond
We
misogyny.
get too relaxed about where we've come, and
Inhuman and violent. Like, it's all rooted in violence. Like, just.
Like
That's not misogyny, like, in the
It's subject
kitchen.
of
That's
violence.
like you are seeking out to hurt a group of people.
Yeah, yeah.
Not
But
to oppress
a
them,
group
but
of
to
people, but again,
hurt them.
women, right?
If we're categorizing as a group.
I imagine a gay
I'm gonna take this off because I think we can't hear you. Okay, go ahead.
Imagine a gay initiative to make rape legal protest. Like, how much do you see probably get beaten up for that? Like, it really is just heterosexual males that are having this moment.
Right. I agree. It's terrifying and very worrisome. Okay, so do we understand the embracing of the vagina then? Do we get it? Even though it may seem extreme, like Lauren was saying, it's what had to be done at the time. It was a way of bringing us. But the big criticism about it is that it's essentialist. What do we mean by essentialist? This is a term that's not in your reading, but I want you to be familiar with this, so take notes. What does essentialist mean? It's slightly different than what we were talking about this morning, but it's related.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Essentialist versus existentialist.
Yeah, don't do that for sex. That will take us into a territory that we don't necessarily need to cover. What makes us women?
Yeah, in this context, you're referring to the kind of transphobia of it, where it's saying, like, the vagina is what makes you a woman?
Essentially.
Okay.
Yes.
That was
Yeah,
what I
and then we
think
can
we were
be
going for.
defined according to essential qualities, including childbirth and other kinds of things.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of related to that, but
Yeah,
we're
because
looking at it in
they
a
were
framework.
looking at, like, you are a woman because you can carry life and it's more rooted in your sex, whereas the existentialist was what
shameful.
Well, you don't want to do that, and what makes us women is, what we define as.
Okay, yeah, I mean, maybe we should, we'll bring this in, so that basically we kind of divide up in our class this morning between existentialist feminism and essentialist feminism. And the one is be ashamed. The existentialist feminism is basically like, she talks about Simone de Beauvoir, who's like, she's actually repulsed by pregnant women. Like she doesn't want anything to do with pregnancy. In other words, she's denying herself or denying her gender, right? And then there's on the other side of the spectrum is essentialist, which is saying this is who we are, this is what makes me a woman. The fact I can have babies and I have a vagina is what makes me a woman, right? And so it's essentialist. It's kind of down to our most sort of essential qualities, or our sort of essence. And so what we're seeing here with the feminist art is much more in line with this kind of, and the Kristevas article was written, didn't we say roughly around the same time that Shapiro and...
It was in the 70s.
Yeah. So it's all part of this embracing who we are as women, embracing motherhood, embracing femininity, right? And that includes feminine art forms. Okay, so we have Chicago, who's doing embroidery and things like that. And then with Shapiro, well, we saw the Shapiro, right? I'm not going to bother putting it back up. But with Shapiro, she was part of what we call the pattern and decoration movement. It was all about trying to kind of bring that back up on, rather than suppressing it and saying it's a little, inferior art form, she's putting it up there on the level of fine art. Okay? So that's essentially what pattern design is. It's embracing feminine, what we associate with feminine art forms and putting it in sort of a fine art context. Okay, so that's a little bit back on those two, and I think it's important to understand. Okay, I was going to ask a question, but I won't because we're going to run out of time. But let's talk a little bit about the Famage article then. Okay, so somebody summarize it for me real quick. What was the year on that again? 77. 77. I always want to make it earlier 70s. It's later 70s. So we don't have to go through the criteria. That was the question on the discussion board. But basically, what is Famage? How would we define it?
It's basically women collage making, and the author has a list of criteria what would make that Famage. And it also goes into how it's not, there's a deliberate exclusion of these women artists from mainstream, and she offers her own viewpoint on how to make it more mainstream or make it more valued.
Okay.
There's also the aspect where it's typically activities that are viewed as women's work.
Yeah.
Right, right. And can you see how this kind of goes along with the idea of bricolage, right? Bricolage, Famage. They're kind of essentially the same idea, right? Just kind of different sort of word for it. I was trying to think of and that could very well be a question on your final exam, right? So have you noticed with this class?
Versus Famage?
No, not necessarily, but incorporating those terms. Because I was thinking today, we've talked a lot of concepts that are hard to I imagine this class is kind of hard to take notes in.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm trying, but
okay.
It doesn't work.
So that's why I'm trying to key things like Famage. You need to know what Famage means. You need to do bricolage. You need to know the problems with defining it, the issues behind it, right? Not just being able to spout off a definition, but be able to discuss the complexities of these concepts, how they've been challenged, how it relates to gender. Okay. So and don't worry though this is a concept-based class. That was from the very beginning, that's the way I conceived this class, is that we'd be really talking about a lot of concepts. And then we bring in, art and different specifics along the way. So don't worry about it too much. As long as you're keeping up with I'm kind of detouring, but this is something I meant to say at the beginning of the class. As long as you're keeping up with the readings and you're following the discussion on the discussion board in class, you will do fine in the final. If you're not, you're going to struggle. Okay? It's sort of a way of kind of bringing together what we've talked about in class.
Is it going to be like a test?
It'll be essay, and it'll be open book.
Oh, it'll be okay.
Essay, open book. So if you have, and again, I understand note-taking is a little difficult, but, I'll usually kind of say, right when I write
this down. Is it like a take-home final?
It'll be take-home.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I just imagine me looking through all the articles in, the 3 hours.
Right, which is why you need to have done the reading going into it.
Well, no. But if I'm like looking for like, oh, I really want to use that one example because it'll really make the paper, and I'm still sifting.
But you might have to do that though.
What?
You still might have to do that though.
No, I'd have to do it,
okay.
but there's not like I got like 15 minutes to find like.
Oh, time.
Just the pressure on it, not the idea that I have to go back through.
Okay, I got it. Yeah. So anyway, so in case anybody's wondering about that, I just wanted to kind of clarify that so you know how to be preparing for it.
Like 3 5-page papers, or like is it going to be separate essays? Or
separate essays, and you'll have a choice. I'll probably give you like 5, and you'll choose maybe 3 out of the 5 to answer. Mm-hmm. So, whatever you're most comfortable discussing, you can discuss. But again, it's not the kind of thing at the last, that's how all my exams are. And I have a lot of people in my classes. It's not the kind of thing at the last minute you can just kind of figure out. You have to kind of have been following and keeping up along the way. Okay, so Famage then, somebody talked about this idea of mainstream. Somebody quoted her. What does she mean when she says mainstream? I'm surprised she doesn't come out and say it. Yes, right. By making it, entering into the patriarchal world of art as it existed and continues to exist. I'm sorry if I sound like a raving feminist saying that, but we do all acknowledge that is true, right?
Yeah.
If you don't, then okay.
I have to.
I'm deviating here for a minute, but I had to look through my course evaluations because I'm up for promotion, and you have to submit your last 5 years course evaluations. And I had one student say, she was very opinionated. From the very beginning, she told us how she felt about feminism, and it didn't allow us the opportunity to develop our own opinions, which isn't altogether true because I start off the course by saying, how many of you would consider yourself feminist? And this usually, believe it or not, 2 or 3 people raise their hand. Mm-hmm. And then I don't say anything. We go through the course, and at the end, watch that comment be someone who's taking the course. And we go through the course, and I like to think that they're slowly coming around to the idea of what feminism is and how we have faced obstacles, especially women artists. And then, and I said obstacles, I know. So obstacles. And then at the end of the semester, I'll ask the same question. And almost always, everyone raises their hands. So I like to think that it is a gradual understanding and not me forcing my opinion. So that's kind of why I said, because does anybody have a object to the sort of feminist premise that I'm starting with here?
Well, I raised my hand when you asked at the beginning of the class.
Yeah, I raised mine.
Oh, did I do it in here too?
Yeah, I did.
What were the results? I don't remember.
Not very many people.
Like 2 or 3 of us.
Oh, that's right. We did. Now I
You
remember.
can try again.
We'll wait till the end of the semester. But I hope you don't feel like I'm cramming my opinion. But these are facts. When we say that this is a patriarchal art world, that is a fact. That's not my opinion. That's not me being a feminist and putting a feminist angle on it. That's a fact. And I mean, let's tie this into Morgan's comment about the hoops that women had to go through. It was sort of implied. Can't remember which article. I'm going to show you a little something, okay? I know it's getting late, but I want to show you a little something. And I actually have it in my PowerPoint. I'm so organized on these. Except I'm looking at the wrong computer. So what happens when you're teaching your 4th class. Okay, let's see. I'm not stop podcast. So I'm going to show you a little clip. I'm going to show you a little clip from a movie, a documentary, and it's actually all online now. I just discovered it this evening. Otherwise, I would have incorporated it into the syllabus. So if you would like to watch it, you will get extra credit points. Okay, but it's not just watching; it's writing a response to it. Okay, and it's pretty revolutionary. It's pretty heavy-handed because, as we understand, they kind of have to be, right? They're bold, and there's no way around it. But I'm going to show you a little excerpt from this. I wonder if it'll work in here. Oh, just to kind of point out too, we were talking about Shapiro. I put this in here. Anonymous is a woman. So this is the kind of thing we're talking about. This is her embracing Famage, her embracing women's feminine art forms, decoration art, and so on. And notice it's acrylic and collage. She's combining acrylic, which you would associate more with men traditionally, and collage with women. And we won't go into this debate about whether she's sort of the debate we had online, because I think we had a good debate about whether or not they're actually denying an identity to the creators of these things. So let's just watch this a few minutes.
Can you post this link on Classroom?
It's on the PowerPoint, which is uploaded to the classroom.
It's the
second one. Okay. I'm just going to fast forward a little bit because it's right about.
Of the real world and what it meant to be a woman.
Okay, so this is talking about those hoops that women had to go through, just so that we can understand. And again, Morgan kind of brought that up. I can't remember which reading it was. Do you remember, Morgan, which reading you were talking about? These sort of.
I think it was the question about moving beyond the binary. You included the two art.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's watch this though, because I think this is quite interesting. It's about 6 minutes. What does that say? It's before then.
It's 5:45.
I was hiding it out on arteries at the time.
4:50.
It was a week-long protest and art events against the Vietnam War. I used a formation from my ward piece. We snaked through the streets of Soho with black armbands.
There's Harry on
Politics of 1970 must clearly say to all American people that the walls between the races, the walls between the classes must come crashing down.
Judy Cohn Garowitz was inspired by the Black Panthers when she changed her last name to Chicago.
So we adapted the clothes of the Black Panthers and we developed our own clothes. So it's actually true. When I didn't feel like I had a name, I wanted to make some statement, some kind of symbolic statement about the fact that I was taking control of my own destiny. I was fighting it out pretty much alone and isolated.
I shot wherever and whenever I could. This clip of Judy Chicago was shot in a bathroom heated state where we were able to get good sound.
Let's see if I can think back that far, Lynn. Now we're going back into the end of the 60s, okay? There were almost no women artists who were visible at all.
We all thought we were alone.
Some friends said to me, if anybody can tell you, what galleries you can go to, or what you can do and stuff, go to Leo Castelli. So like a fool. And I went to the Uptown Gallery, and of course he didn't see me, Ivan Carp saw me. And I was wearing high-heeled boots at the time. And so I'm, really kind of tall. And Ivan is small. And there were these sculpture stands all around the place. And he didn't have me put my big tablet, 24 by 36 on this. He had me put on the floor. So every time I turned a page, it was like I was genuflecting to this guy. I felt humiliated. And then he said, where'd you bring these to me? I learned to, look into a lot of facets of the real world and what it meant to be a woman artist in the society and in the art world. And as it was pretty tough.
Women aspiring to success in the male-dominated art world, as we know, must work much harder at it and will be defined as second-rate for the most part.
It was sort of a built-in attitude within the institutions that it was acceptable, normal, and preferable to have all white male shows. So coming up against that, both as a black person and as a woman, was very daunting because it had to do with basic attitudes.
All right, so this is kind of a glimpse of it, but kind of giving you an idea of some of those hoops, right? So I do want you to be aware of the feminist art movement, what motivated them, and how their interests were reflected in their art, right? So again, if this is a question, you should be able to kind of discuss it intelligently. Let's go ahead and stop there since it's 9:30. Are there any questions?
When will the readings for next week be
They're
posted?
posted. I did it at the break.
Excellent.
Morgan and Lauren, one of the readings is available through a database called Films on Demand. So I'm not sure if your library has that. If they don't, let me know and I'll see if there's another way around and I can get it to you. But the link to the video is to Films on Demand. And if you online, sorry, yeah, did you say it's online?
Yeah.
It's online under the assignment for week 5.
Is there like, I know at our school we have an off-campus log on for all of our library resources. Can I get that where you have?
Yeah, what you know what I'll do actually, I will go on, I'll edit it, and I'll put the name of it, and then you can just go on, like you're just straight to your database or however you access it, and then just do a search and find it that way. If you don't have Films on Demand, then let me know.
All right.
Okay. What was I going to say? So next week is our last week with textiles, okay, and then after that we're going into ceramics. Okay. Happy reading. I know some of it probably seems a little repetitive at this point, but hopefully we're continuing to bring in new concepts each week. Okay? All right. Bye, Lauren. Bye, Morgan.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good night.
You too. Yeah.
You're still on share screen.
Thanks for your help. Bye. Bye.
I hate having to do evolution reading after this class. I'm just so tired.
So have you had